Part 328. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3285. Okay. That's great. Come on, by the way, let me tell you something before we fight. You ask my height Yen, I have encountered him before, he is also an interesting young man. Young man. Jia Yan choked. The old man who was about to be buried was actually still a young man. Is this robot who calls himself the real person actually such an old person? Jia Yan didn't feel any death energy from the other party anyway. Before Jia Yan, who was deep in thought, could think any more, the interaction between the two parties had already begun. Jia Yan's offensive followed him like a shadow, but the opponent's body became huge and was hundreds of kilometers high, waiting for work. Jia Yan entered the subspace, but the robot locked his position tightly, and the two sides looked at each other as if there was no barrier. This is the first time Jia Yan has encountered this situation. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart, we really can't underestimate the world's heroes. Pong. The subspace cracked, and the two sides clashed at an invisible speed. This kind of invisibility is really invisible. The level of the two has reached a level where it seems real but not real, and what seems real is not real. Moreover, this level of strength can only be understood but cannot be expressed. It is like a skilled worker doing manual labor who performs certain mechanical tasks. When working, there will always be a feeling of integration, speed, and stability. Just when they reached this level of artistic conception, they naturally developed a wonderful situation where they could engage in fierce battles in the air without having to formally fight. It's even better than I imagined. Okay, use all your methods together, otherwise you won't be able to defeat me with your current moves. The giant hand was no longer waving in the sky. The aftermath of the battle between the two sides almost traveled through the starry sky, and countless subspaces and gravitational wave spaces were destroyed. Jia Yan knew that the robots referred to the explosives and formations around him. He nodded, said no more, and pressed down hard with the endless attacks filled with stars. There was no beating around the bush, no pre-war momentum boost. When the strength reaches an extremely high level, the fighting methods become unsophisticated and return to nature. It's a very good technique. It contains both what you call yin and yang dao and the skills of that world. What's even more unique is the power of your array. It makes people sigh. It's such a talented person in this generation. The robot has been giving instructions with a high attitude. This attitude is what Jia Yan dislikes the most. Your Excellency talks too much nonsense. Since you are so generous, it depends on whether you can take it or not. In the blink of an eye, Jia Yan's offensive reached the opponent. Faced with such a fighting method, he was not afraid of danger, and his palms actually spread out with 5 fingers, like the 5 shocking fingers of Optimus Prime suddenly clenching together. The endless space seemed to have encountered some black hole and was completely absorbed. Even Jia Yan was horrified to find that most of the offensive he had just spent so much effort on was pulled away by this attraction. Gravity power? No, it doesn't look like. His heart shuddered, knowing that this battle would definitely be more difficult than he imagined. It's not that easy to deal with the existence in front of you. What's even more confusing to him is that the opponent has far more combat experience than him. Every time Jia Yan uses his attack methods, he can vaguely see from the opponent's eyes that he is wise and wise. With a brilliance that sees everything through. Powerful. It is definitely stronger than my own assessment. Jia Yan even wanted to overturn his own assessment, thinking that he had reached the level of a supermaster. But he did not make such a decision. The supermaster in front of him was an existence that Jia Yan had never fought against before. He didn't know whether supermasters could use various means to break through to a level stronger than their original level. Accompanied by the roaring sounds, the aura was so overwhelming that most of the experts watching the battle from a distance had to step back a lot. Among them is the star-level existence sent by the mountain green forces as a monitor. Sir, what kind of level of battle is this? This little person can't understand anymore. Of course I can't understand your strength. They have reached a level beyond our reach as a star. Sigh, if I have the opportunity to witness such a battle once in my life, this life must be considered worthwhile. The stellar expert who led the team, after answering questions from the other low-level stellar master who was controlling the equipment next to him, turned around and saw beads of sweat on his forehead. Master Shanlu, we can't get any closer. Is this distance okay? Ken. On the other side of the communicator, Shanlu's vaguely more solemn voice came. This stellar subordinate was a little surprised. Because some indescribable sound that just came from over there stopped. It can be seen how shaken the heart of this mountain green power leader is now. Hang up communication. The branches and leaves of the mountain green began to ripple slightly. Next to Shanlu, a colorful butterfly creature gently rubbed against the green tree creature with its beautiful and noble body. What's wrong? Husband, didn't you want to bully Xiao-kun? Why did you give up halfway? There was a hint of teasing in her voice, which made Shanlu feel violent again, almost not continuing the unfinished act. But the scene in front of him made him completely unable to arouse any interest in that aspect. Kun, tell me, what other trump cards does Jia Yan have? You have been following him for so long, so you should know a lot about him, right? Keek, husband, didn't you say that this Jia Yan is nothing to be afraid of? Why are you so interested in him now? Shanlu glanced at concubine Kun. That kind of violent emotion could be daunting. But concubine Kun was not afraid at all. Her family and trump cards were her source of confidence. Even in this situation, she had no fear that the mountain green man would kill her in anger. Moreover, with his stunning beauty, it is impossible for this Shanlu to have the willpower to give up. Concubine, my good concubine, just tell my husband, right? This Jia Yan already hates you to the core. You don't think that he can still be with you, and with such a baby-like existence. Can you really appreciate it? Who knows, maybe I like this kind of concubine. Shanlu suddenly caught concubine Kun right in front of her eyes. Green branches bound concubine Kun all over her body, causing her to moan in pain. Tell me, Kun, you know my temper and I'm already extremely tolerant of you. Well, husband, in my opinion, Jia Yan has quite a few flaws. For example, his fighting method is too single, and his skills are extremely rough. Secondly, his character is too young, and not calming down. These are all his shortcomings, but whether he can grasp it depends on the ability of my husband and others. After all, no matter what, he is also a master who has fought with that senior to such an extent. Do you know that person's identity? Of course, although that senior has not appeared for many years, Kunur and I are not a fool. There are many documents in the family that record him. In addition, your Shanlu forces have had dealings with him long ago. How could you not think of it? It's this one. Shanlu put down concubine Kun angrily. Kun, your smile is really disturbing. I hope you can change it in the future. I can't change it, husband, why don't you just divorce me? Hey, how can I spit out the meat that reaches my mouth? Okay, someone, please send me this information about Jia Yan. There were people waiting outside the door immediately. They didn't dare to look at the scene and entered. Then they respectfully obtained Shanlu's information, and then respectfully. Beijing withdrew from the battlefield between their husband and wife. When neither of them noticed, concubine Kun gently touched a device in her hand. Only when the device emitted a faint fluorescent light did she smile. On the battlefield, the two peerless masters had been fighting for about 2 days and 1 night. It can be said that after reaching the level of a strong person, as long as the strength is not stretched too far, such a protracted war is almost a certainty. This shows that no matter how tall and confident the robot claims to be, in terms of strength itself, there is no possibility of crushing Jia Yan. Otherwise, just like his big words, Jia Yan would have been suppressed in one fell swoop, or even beaten away. Unfortunately, even after the beating, he still said words that angered Jia Yan from time to time. Your Excellency Jia Yan, although your skills are refreshing, the methods are too single. Moreover, the skills you use should be the remaining form of some kind of power. This kind of power cannot be endless. If you continue to fight, these energies will disappear, and your condition may be a little bad by then. I don't need you to worry. Since I came out of the mountain, I have encountered this situation countless times. How can I not have a way to deal with it? Jia Yan is a mountain man who has his own clever ideas. Oh? I'll just wait and see. During the fight between the two, they took the trouble to carry out verbal attacks. This is to crush the opponent at the spiritual level. After all, psychological strikes are quite a skill in evenly matched fights. Jia Yan didn't encounter many similar battles, and once he was at a disadvantage. Although he used confusing methods later to make it impossible for the opponent to make a move, his mood in the fight was really at a slight disadvantage. He had to marvel, no wonder those masters who were older than him, one or two were eloquent, and their courage was gained through fighting. If he were allowed to spend more time with his peers, he might be able to evolve on stage in the future. Talking skills is also one of the necessary skills for a strong person. Of course, if you only delve into this, you may be too distracted by your words during the battle, and the enemy will find an opportunity and kill you in one go, which is putting the cart before the horse. There is a degree that needs to be mastered, and for Jia Yan, this degree also needs to be explored in actual combat. Well. Suddenly, the robot who was fighting with Jia Yan paused slightly. Then he nodded as if he had received something. Jia Yan, there is information over there. Many of your weaknesses have been mentioned. How about I use this information to strike you accurately? But let me make it clear beforehand that I have no grudges against you. I don't want to kill you either. If you retreat obediently at this time and let me fulfill my friend's instructions, then I won't embarrass you. Your Excellency, without further ado, I really want to know what my weaknesses are, so why not give it a try? Well. The other party only felt that Jin was a little stubborn. In fact, he hasn't shown all his strength yet. But if Jia Yan wants to be tough, there is nothing he can do. Then see clearly. Your first weakness is something I have already identified, but I have no targeted attack. Your skills are too raw. He suddenly rushed forward and grasped the whole arm that was enlarged to a size of hundreds of kilometers. I told you, it's impossible for you to catch me. Jia Yan snorted and pulled away. The first catch, like before, fell into the air. The palm of the hand is not like an ordinary human palm, but the 5 fingers are extremely flexible. When Jia Yan dodged the first blow, one of the fingers separated and violently bypassed Jia Yan's defense. It's about touching him in the slightest. But this attack also failed. How could the move you just used against me be successful? It is impossible to succeed, but I judged that you are an experienced person, so I did not continue to use the next killing move. Now that I know your details, let's try this move again. Jia Yan is inexperienced. This is just a simple primary judgment. But for experts, it is impossible for them to directly identify the information that is only judged by the naked eye. Because after reaching the master level, there are too many possibilities and traps in their battles. The robot was afraid that Jia Yan deliberately gave him a flaw, mistaking Jia Yan for being an inexperienced person. If it was a strategy to lure the enemy deeper, he might have fallen into the trap and been injured by Jia Yan just now. But now, with conclusive information coming, he suddenly understood that there was no need to hide the skills that he had been timid about hiding. Jia Yan simply doesn't have enough experience to deal with the traps hidden in normal moves by truly powerful people like them. This is the biggest disadvantage of those who lack experience. Another finger suddenly appeared under Jia Yan's body. When Jia Yan saw this finger, he felt frightened. What the hell? Why are these fingers here? His scalp was numb. He must have just avoided looking at the finger in front of him. He had no time to dodge. The newly shot finger slammed into his body. The endless power of the formation on his body broke a large area, and then he was in a state of embarrassment. Roll away to the starry sky. When Jia Yan returned to his normal gaze level again, there was a touch of uncertainty and slight fear in his eyes. While rolling, he unlocked memories of previous battles. For the strong, memories can also be sealed. It is convenient to extract it for analysis and summary at any time in the future. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3286. Jia Yan sealed the memory of the fight at that time. Many of the details were impossible to see clearly in an instant. But when he read the memory, he felt numb all over. Drenched in sweat. It turned out that during the fight just now, he was thrown in front of the opponent's palm several times. Each time, he passed the palm and then flashed the first finger to break the opponent's attack. However, in my memory, no matter which time, under the first finger, there is a third finger watching eagerly. And after so many times, he never noticed it. If the third finger hadn't rushed forward to attack him just now, he might not have been able to notice it at all, except for seeing the scene during the post-war summary. Does this mean that the other party is indeed staying as he said? No, this guy is probably afraid that Jia Yan will also detect the trap of this finger, and then he will try to trick him. As long as the trick is used, this finger may cut it off. Yes, in a battle between masters, taking advantage of one's tactics is also an extremely important part. In my previous battles, I did too little research on this aspect. He finally realized that he was still too young. At least when it comes to head-to-head combat, he's so tender that his mouth is watering. Is this the real battle of the strong? He was only on the first level, but his opponent regarded him as the third level, so he missed several opportunities to continue attacking Jia Yan. There is still much to learn. Sure enough, as a seasoned master, there is still a lot of difference between me and them. Jia Yan retreated several times, but as soon as the thought came up, his finger moved accordingly, as if all his actions were planned by the other party. Terrible. Puff. The two collided without any tricks, and Jia Yan had no choice but to use his weakest midfoot to give the opponent a head-on impact. Catcha. Without any accident, the midfoot was stabbed so hard by his fingers that cracks appeared. As expected, Your Excellency Jia Yan, you are too young. The opponent's power was freely released and released. After attacking Jia Yan, the slap was pulled back, almost grazing the forefoot of Jia Yan's counterattack. Indeed, I am too young and inexperienced. Before Jia Yan got the information, the other party regarded Jia Yan as a formidable enemy. After getting hold of this seemingly natural information, his attacks became more aggressive because he knew that Jia Yan was inexperienced. Then simply use the moves used to deal with those who lack experience. Don't think this is ordinary. Without intelligence, you will only regard Jia Yan's simple fighting methods as luring the enemy deeper. Although this possibility is unlikely, do you dare to take the risk? Don't dare. So the previous matches were not very good. Your other weaknesses. Snort. Jia Yan held his breath and snorted coldly. Under the control of his feet, a piece of explosives in the starry sky flew to the opponent's side and exploded suddenly. Because I'm young, I can't hold my breath. It's true. The giant palm seemed to have anticipated Jia Yan's angry behavior in advance. With a joking expression, one palm turned into a fist to defend against the attack of the explosives. The situation of the battle took a turn for the worse. It was as if the opponent had already seen through Jia Yan's capabilities, as all attacks and combat paths were discerned by him. This made Jia Yan grit his teeth and feel a little confused. The injury to the midfoot is not serious, and the midfoot is almost not responsible for fighting, so the battle will not be affected. But the first problem he had to solve was how the other party could defeat his own fighting style. If this problem is not ruled out, he is likely to lose all combat initiative and then become a piece of fish on the chopping board, ready to be slaughtered by others. Entering the subspace to take advantage of his talent to fight against others has always been Jia Yan's biggest reliance. And it's not one of them. Because almost all of his combat skills are assisted by using subspace as a method of movement. Why is it so rare for his disciples and grandsons to have Jia Yan's perfect fighting skills? To put it bluntly, it is precisely because their subspace talents are not good enough that Jia Yan cannot teach them combat abilities that are similar enough to his own. This is why Edisha's reputation in Yin-Yang sect Rukong is at its peak, because many of the fighting techniques she created are more acceptable and used by the general public in Yin-Yang sect. Although Edisha is based in the trade area and sees fewer and fewer Onmyodo disciples, this does not prevent her skills from being transmitted back to the Onmyoji sect. In other words, if I lose the ability advantage of subspace, will the battle be like this? It's really sad to say it. Jia Yan sighed with emotion. Then he regained his composure. Feeling sorry for yourself is not the mentality that strong men should have when fighting against each other. Only at this point, he believed that he still had some say. His own fighting mentality has always been that the brave wins. You have more experience than me, right? Well, I'll use force to overcome skill, and I haven't lost yet. Jia Yan knows that when encountering each other on a narrow road, the brave will win. In fact, the gap between oneself and the opponent in terms of essential fighting methods is not particularly large. Thanks to the various combat skills he has accumulated over time, his methods can be described as diverse. And every one of them is enough for him to surpass the level and kill the enemy. Therefore, these are also his background. The gap between combat skills and experience is a bit large, which does not mean that he will definitely lose. Has your style changed again? Jia Yan, you are such an amazing kid. You are so big. Jia Yan roared, and a large amount of explosives burst out from the subspace. He, as expected, my temper has been aroused again. I have been prepared for it. The giant palm struck directly, as if he had guessed that Jia Yan would become furious under the influence of his words. A piece of explosives was swept away by the opponent's giant hand before it exploded. It was so fast that the controller Jia Yan didn't expect it, and he had no time to detonate the explosives when he was close to the giant hand. By the time he reacted and ignited the explosive, it was already too late. The rumbling sound is endless. An overwhelming wave of air opened up, and the opponent's body left in one direction in the endless wave of explosions and crowding. However, it was not in an awkward manner, but appeared to be calm and unhurried. Is this the last rank of the top domain lord in the galaxy? Jia Yan felt his mosquito eyes begin to twitch crazily. This is too difficult to fight. Sure enough, the opponent should be a truly top expert who is famous all over the world, but I don't know who his name is. Jia Yan was sure that the other party's identity must be high rather than low. But I never thought that I would be facing the next level of domain master who is recognized as one of the most powerful in the entire galaxy. If you knew it, you would be more or less proud of your performance. After all, he didn't lose directly. But tossing it with the other party to such an extent. After weighing the pros and cons, Jia Yan restrained his aura and personality. Yes, it's character. For strong people, character can also be simulated. However, under ordinary conditions, most of them still use their own character as their basic base. After all, no one will just practice there all day long. Play around with yourself by pretending to be someone else. Now is that time. Your Excellency's ability is indeed an eye-opener for me, so let the battle continue. Jia Yan spent a lot of explosives, formation energy, and even his own strength, realizing that with his own personality, it would be difficult to fight against the opponent, but these efforts were necessary. Then switch to another personality, don't be so excited when things happen, calm down, and always find ways to get a chance to win. Oh? Have you realized the problems you are facing so quickly? It's so gratifying for the demigod. Jia Yan wanted to yell just like before, don't show off. But now that he has changed his personality, he is constantly reminding himself in his heart not to get excited. Once the opponent finds an opportunity to consume his combat supplies again, he is afraid that failure is just around the corner. Although he knew that subspace was no longer his biggest advantage, he still got into the subspace. The advantage of subspace will definitely not disappear if the opponent gets used to it. In any case, it is also a kind of killer-level existence. The calm Jia Yan chose the best strategy. But the other party just curled his lips, seemingly calm on the surface, but deep down inside. I'm just afraid that this kid will awaken on his own. It seems that this battle still needs to be fought. Sulfuric acid. The roaring sound of fighting sounded again. Jia Yan's fighting style is still seen through. Things in experience cannot be changed by changing your personality. Otherwise, this kind of change has long become a common way of strengthening for all strong people. But he was able to calm Jia Yan down. That's enough. Puff. Jia Yan took advantage of the opponent to use his other skills and his rich experience to attack him, and retreated a lot. Then he got into the subspace and avoided the opponent's inevitable blow. Oh. The robot master nodded secretly. This is like a young man who can lead an era. But this kind of self-reflection and the speed of self-growth are really impressive. However, the fundamentals remain unchanged. Jia Yan just doesn't fight with him now, and uses his subspace talent advantage to hit away every time. In this way, the gap in experience between the two sides has been narrowed infinitely. Your choice is right, but this awareness is not enough. If I were you, I would choose subspace dodge, and then use that weird explosive attack method. Jia Yan listened to the other party's instructions. A certain unpleasant feeling came to my heart again. This was obviously a statement that angered him. He wanted to reveal his flaws again in a way that he couldn't stand the other party treating him as incompetent. If not, is it possible to give guidance during the battle? Your Excellency, although you gave the advice with ill intentions, aren't you afraid that you really taught me how to play with fire? Jia Yan's voice with Gu Jingbuo's voice came from not far away. Ding. The two once again caused a confrontation in space. Very intense. But the two of them knew that the confrontation at this time had reached a psychological level. Yu's combat skills can sometimes play a more important role than physical combat. Haha, if I could play with fire, I would have died countless times, but maybe this time is an exception? Why don't you give it a try, Your Excellency Jia Yan? The robot gave a rare smile. Jia Yan didn't dare to try. He obviously saw some kind of flaw in his unlimited bombing technique. Otherwise, he would not be tempted to adopt such a fighting method. But is it possible that it's true? Is he afraid of that kind of fighting method, so he deliberately said it to make himself abandon it? Jia Yan was caught in a dilemma. Fighting against such a master every minute and every second is a refreshing improvement in combat experience. As I said earlier, Jia Yan knew the importance of combat experience a long time ago. If you have never fought against a master at a certain level, then you will not understand how a master at that level fights, and what you should pay attention to when fighting. The place. This is when he once again works hard to learn a new realm of fighting. I just didn't expect that the way of fighting in this realm would be so insidious and cunning. Can you believe that a master who is at the top of the domain master level, once faced with a being whose strength is equal to his own, in addition to crushing him in battle, will mainly use verbal cannons? This is a bit too low. But very reasonable. Perhaps only the techniques used by this robot were different from others. Anyway, after seeing its fighting methods, he understood by analogy that other similar masters used similar techniques, and he was able to deal with them calmly. Jia Yan is still thinking more about the current fighting method. How about, I give up the chance of winning? Facing such a master, would it be better if I pursue a draw? Such thoughts flashed through his mind. Unexpectedly, just after this thought emerged in his heart, the opponent in the fight with Jia Yan Mengli burst into laughter. Jia Yan, are you thinking that a draw with me is enough? I advise you to put away this idea. If you think of a draw in this battle, you will lose. You can think about the specific reason why. Sulfuric acid. Is this person a maggot? Jia Yan fought with him for a moment, and the two separated. Jia Yan solemnly entered the subspace and looked at the top master outside. It's really incredible. He only felt that all his actions and thoughts had been guessed by the other party. Although he was fighting, Jia Yan felt that the other party was nothing more than that, but at this time he felt like a bottomless master. Awesome, it's really awesome. Even if he is not as good as Chao Shi, his combat experience and grasp of people's hearts are better than all the masters I have seen. Maybe a similar master has appeared before him before. But Jia Yan was either defeated or killed the opponent casually. He had never been so close in strength. In other words, it was the first time that he was close to an opponent whose apparent strength was comparable to his own. He felt that the power of the attack he received doubled due to the opponent's talkative words. It was very uncomfortable, but I had to fight. His pursuit of a draw will inevitably lead to failure? Yes, if I pursue a draw, it would be inconsistent with my own fighting personality. I have never had any fighting philosophy of pursuing a draw. With the sudden change, the defeat may be on me. Jia Yan realized it later. But this made his back shiver. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3287. This guy helped me figure out this idea and then denied it? What on earth did he mean? Conspiracies and such are completely incomprehensible. Just when Jia Yan and the person in front of him continued to confront each other, and there was a feeling in his heart that even though the other person had been back and forth with him, he was very different from him. Brother Master. Here comes Aditya. Aditya's voice sounded in Jia Yan's mind. He was so surprised that he looked into the depths of subspace. It turns out that a huge palace ship came from the depths of subspace. Aditya's figure appeared on the edge of the palace. How come she is here? Jia Yan clearly remembered that Aditya was taken away by him to pick. Purchase. No, that's right, they're just sneaking around the trade area to purchase. Why are they sneaking to the central star region of the galaxy? Master, brother, don't worry about how I came here. Now Aditya says, come and try to see if you can defeat this guy. Aditya's voice was filled with confidence and a certain joy. Good. Jia Yan didn't hesitate too much and chose to believe Aditya. If it were another person, he would definitely not believe it, but Aditya and Jia Yan have been through life and death and have experienced too much in their lives. If there is anyone in this universe that Jia Yan almost unconditionally trusts, then it is Aditya. None other than. It's not that he doesn't trust others, nor is it that the friendship with others is not as high as that of Aditya, because apart from the aspect of friendship and interpersonal relationships, what makes Aditya stronger than others is that she has cooperated with Jia Yan for too long and helped him defeat too many great enemies. This is not worthy of belief, and Jia Yan really has no one who can believe it. I will analyze his movements. He is currently using array communication methods, which he doesn't know. Jia Yan was startled. Can even the lower-level domain lords, or even people who are more powerful than themselves, be able to conceal their communication methods? When Jia Yan communicated with Adisha, the robot couldn't hear it because in essence, Jia Yan's strength was similar to that of the other person. It was a bit sensational that lovely Disha could do it too. You know, her strength has only reached the star level not long ago. It is indeed a special life form. Left. Jia Yan followed Edish's words and dodged the attack from the left. This move belongs to the starting position, and Jia Yan himself can easily dodge it. Right. Isn't it down there? Jia Yan felt a little hesitant in his heart. But when I thought about my choice to believe in Edisha, I suddenly acted to obey her opinion. Sure enough, I saw that the robot that liked to attack from below during the combo just used a different direction this time, with its fingers attacking from the right. You old liar! Jia Yan's thread twitched, and he was extremely happy at the same time. Fortunately, I listened to Edish's guidance, otherwise this trick would definitely have to be done one by one. Huh? This young man. The robot's expression darkened, and his expression turned gloomy. He couldn't understand why this move failed. Just now, Jia Yan was completely unable to dodge his own moves. This time, he even used counter-logic to catch Jia Yan off guard. The move that was supposed to be a 100% sure hit, unexpectedly ended in failure. He seems to be emitting some kind of brainwave power. Is he communicating with something? But I didn't catch the power fluctuations. This expert doesn't understand. Why does Jia Yan seem to be able to see through the intentions of his actions? Maybe it's luck, try again. Jia Yan has complete trust in Edisha's guidance. However, he believed that even if Edisha was a reincarnated being, it would not be possible to easily decipher the attack intentions of a top domain master. If the brain reincarnation was so powerful, there would already be a bunch of life forms like this in the galaxy. Adisha, be careful, he's doing a combo. Left. Jia Yan's reminder had just been sent, and Adisha's reminder had also arrived. At the same time, Jia Yan already felt a new attack coming from the left side of his body. Good guy, another attack method that defies logic. The opponent's handheld tip hit Jia Yan's protective blue barrier in a weird twisting way. Fortunately, although Jia Yan could not dodge, he was able to avoid most of the force because of Edisha's prompt warning in advance. I'm sorry, brother master, he moves too fast, I can't possibly keep up with him. It's okay. It's not your fault. You've done a good enough job. Jia Yan nodded secretly. He didn't mean to blame Edisha. Just like what he said, Edisha's notification was quick enough, but after all, the two parties were not the same individual. Trying to communicate in time was like a dream, and there was always a delay. What's more, with Edisha's strength, she was able to react to a brief attack by a lower-level domain lord, and not only reacted by herself, but also notified Jia Yan, saying that it would be unbelievable. He had no reason or possibility to blame Edisha. It turns out that this is the biggest disadvantage of using Editha's notification combat method. Our level is too high, and she can only play a supporting role at most. But enough. Edisha, you give me the possibility as quickly as possible, and then give me the information about his biggest vulnerability, just like before, do you understand? Understood. Edisha also seemed to have returned to the time when she was still a smart brain, and she shouted with excitement. The two of them cooperated flawlessly. Well. As the time coordination between the two sides gradually increased, the robot suddenly discovered that its offensive seemed to be less effective. Impossible. This attack failed again. There was a hint of intense stagnation in the robot man's eyes. You must know that the most powerful thing about a truly top master lies in his combat experience. I want to ask, Who in the world can defeat the enemy every time by relying only on energy crushing? Then there is no such thing as fighting. The stronger ones can just kill the weaker ones. Especially at the lower level of Domain Lord, his advantage is his combat experience, which is really outrageous. Therefore, he has always used his rich experience to win every battle, seemingly not so happily, but in fact he won them all in a real way. This is also the reason why he can be called the most powerful person among the late lords of the Milky Way galaxy. Of course, this first place is definitely controversial, and several experts are also vying for this position, but at least in the circle of friends he knows, many people voted for him. Now, the area of absolute advantage that he is famous for has been cracked by a little-known junior. Something's wrong. This kid was like a novice before, why suddenly he seems to be a different person? He began to think. Dig deep into the sea of memory and read endless battle scenes from tens of thousands of years. Finally he found a possibility. More than 10,000 years ago, the central star field of the Milky Way once broke into a civilization dominated by technology. However, they did not follow the path of pure technology. Instead, they used the power of technology to cultivate supermasters like cyborgs. One of them, it is the combination of technological computing power, and that caused me a lot of troubles. However, at that time, I was just a high-level star. I didn't expect that I would encounter similar situations to where I am today. Something. He began to observe whether Jia Yan had installed any technological equipment inside his body. But no. From his perspective, Jia Yan's body was almost a perfect genetic structure. If he hadn't already known that he was a creature left in the galaxy by a powerful being, passed down from generation to generation, and each generation was perfect, he would even have doubts. Jia Yan itself is made of technology. Precisely because it is so perfect, it is clear at a glance whether the has installed technological equipment. No. What exactly is that? The other party's face darkened and he scanned the surroundings fiercely. Finally, with his efforts, he discovered a huge ship docked in the 9th dimension. What a huge palace! So, he relied on the technology in this palace for communication. He understood immediately, snorted in his heart, young people really know how to play, and raised his hands. Be careful, he's going to attack again. Jia Yan looked solemn and did not dare to relax at all. Brother Master. His target, is me. Adisha was unsure about her words at first, and then she sped up and screamed anxiously. What? Jia Yan reacted like an explosion in his mind. He knew that the other party was aware of the palace deep in the subspace. But I didn't expect that he would be so decisive and want to get rid of Edis's supporter. Stop it! Jia Yan pulled away and swept his feet, wiping the little finger of the opponent's palm hard, but it was already too late. The entire palm is like a giant arm extending into the mire, suddenly plunged into the depths of subspace. You must know that the giant palace is in the 9th dimensional subspace. Although it is not as deep as the 10-dimensional subspace under normal navigation conditions, the 9th degree is not something that ordinary domain lords can easily break through. It will at least be weakened by a large amount. Combat effectiveness. But for the masters of the lower realm masters, this 9-dimensional space is really like a small mudflat. They directly step in and quickly approach the palace. Stop it! Jia Yan's eyes were about to burst, and he stood up with all his strength, pushing forward and reverse forces to the limit. There was a loud rumble, and both subspace and normal space exploded into one. Amid the roar, Jia Yan watched as his giant hand hit a corner of the palace, completely shattering the subspace defense shield protecting the palace. The little girl stepped back with a hint of panic in her eyes, but she was still unable to do anything and was directly swept away. Following the endless palace fragments, she rolled into the depths of the 9th dimension. Damn it! Jia Yan was really furious this time. If there was anything wrong with Edissa, he would definitely blame himself and regret it. This time I just came to test the level of the masters of the Milky Way central galaxy. Even if I lose, there are still ways to leave here. He didn't expect to hook up with Adisha, this was not his intention. I am at odds with you. Jia Yan snorted coldly and penetrated into the subspace. At the same time, he saw that the giant palm was about to be withdrawn. His compound eyes flashed with anger that was too strong to be resolved. The subspace was already filled with a large number of positive and negative explosives. He threw it hard at the palms and arms. This time he was really desperate and threw almost all his inventory into this move. The people from the aircraft school outside the subspace let out deafening roars, which showed how painful it was. Jia Yan completely ignored this person's anger and rushed to the direction where Edisha fell into the subspace. He was the angriest one. Not to mention the attack just now, it is very likely that the opponent's arm could not be broken. Even if it was broken by luck, the loss of an arm would be as big as the loss of Edisha. Far away, at the edge of the 10th dimension of subspace, there was an extremely small figure of a human girl drifting with the current. There was actually endless array power unfolding on the surface of her body, and she was able to withstand the tidal power of the instant that was close to 10 dimensions of space. But this power is completely uncontrollable, and it is consumed at a rapid rate visible to the naked eye. In less than a second, the subspace may directly come into contact with Edisha's body. Her body will disappear out of thin air as much as it comes into contact with, just like it disappears naturally. Poof! When the entire defensive force was crushed by the pressure of subspace and was about to destroy Edisha's body, Jia Yan's feet arrived in time, and an extremely domineering subspace ability unfolded to save the girl from danger. Jia Yan looked at the girl he had rescued. Her brows were furrowed, showing a painful expression, her eyes were closed, and she was obviously unconscious. You know, it is difficult for a body controlled by the brain to fall into coma. It can be seen that this time he suffered a real serious injury, and he doesn't know whether he will get better. Jia Yan. Another arm from the outside world stretched out into the subspace. It was obvious that the opponent also had real killing intent because of Jia Yan's all-out explosive attack. There was a flash of murderous intent in Jia Yan's eyes. The battle between you and me will be left for later. I have remembered your face and breath. When I find out your identity in the future, I will definitely pay back all the vengeance I have suffered today. He decided to leave here first. The feud between the two parties was settled, and Adissa was injured. It would be a real regret if she didn't find a way to treat her as soon as possible. Just give him a spanking and remember the other person's hatred. Outside the subspace, the badly injured palm that had just reached out and reached for the powerful robot Jia Yan, I felt that all the explosives and formation circles floating in the subspace were rushing in like a desperate force. No. This kid wants to fight for his life. His expression suddenly changed, and he stopped intercepting Jia Yan and stretched out his arm from the subspace to protect the vital parts of his head. A moment later, shock waves and explosions like huge waves spread endlessly in the starry sky. The behemoth was completely shrouded in the center of the explosion, and there was no way to escape. Only the roars that sounded from time to time could let people know that it was not dead. This kind of explosion simply exceeded the expectations of onlookers. The intense radiation storm even brought extremely terrifying ray waves to several surrounding living planets, causing death and injury to countless people on them. But no one pays attention to the life and death of these ordinary life forms, and more eyes are focused on the interior of the war zone. After the explosion just now, no one could see the scene in the central area. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3288. Who will lose and who will win in this battle? It shouldn't be. Why is the fight going to such an extent? Doesn't it mean that when the powerful masters of the lower realm lords fight, it will almost never end in a life and death battle? You believe this, too. The so-called point-to-point approach should not be the way between friends. At least these two are not friends in my opinion. Hee, it would be best if one of them dies. Silence. You don't want your life. All the bystanders were talking about it. Wait until the endless explosions and destruction subside. At the center of the explosion, I don't know when it became more than just a giant arm. What was left behind was a flesh and blood mold lake whose left arm was blown up. His entire body was more than 10,000 kilometers away. He looked like a burly human race, but his stature was unbelievably strong. Jia Yan. Very good. Very good. The monster's bloody head and hair looked as if they had been blown to black. Its eyes were fixed on the depths of the subspace, with an expression that was both angry and solemn. In the direction of the subspace he was looking at, the ruins of a palace that was as huge as a planet were leaving at a rapid speed. Visible to the naked eye, it was directly beyond its attack range. Even if he is within the attack range, this top-ranking domain lord will probably not attack directly. He understood that Jia Yan still had fighting power, and if the fight continued, it would become a life and death battle. Although the two are fighting like this, it can be regarded as an appetizer for a real fire. If it really came to a fight, both sides would definitely have their own trump cards. He had already seen Jia Yan's ability just now, and he was a good opponent. Unless he was forced to do so, he did not want to have a life-or-death showdown with Jia Yan. Fighting for a small person is really not worth it. This battle is over and I look forward to meeting you next time. People from the Green Mountain Force in the distance were overjoyed and wanted to pay a visit. They invited the world's top powerhouse to rest within the Green Mountain Force, and by the way, they had a great relationship. But what disappointed these people was that this top expert didn't give them such a chance at all. He turned around and left the place in a flash. No one even knew what kind of movement he used. Was Jia Yan repelled? But his performance was extremely strong. Big news, hurry up and spread it to the outside world. By the way, the giant 10,000 kilometers high should also investigate it, otherwise we won't be able to win people's trust. Many media and influential visitors went crazy. They were ordered to come here to inquire about information, but they never expected that they would be lucky enough to witness this shocking battle. This is the first time for many territory lords to see the battles of the masters of the lower-level territory lords, let alone life forms whose strength is lower than them. For a time, the news about this battle, the news about Jia Yan, and the news about the terrifying and powerful man who turned into a 10,000 kilometers giant at the last moment, began to spread like wings in the starry sky and sea, and spread like wildfire. Even in the entire galaxy, wars at the lower levels of domain lords are quite rare. Even if there are such level of gladiatorial battles, most of the strong people prefer to fight in inaccessible places. Examples like this for people to appreciate in public are extremely rare. What's more, it's a battle between two people whose strength should not be at the bottom of the lower level of domain lord. Many leaders who had reached the domain lord level watched the film and television materials of the battle through the media or other channels, and they were all dumbfounded as if they had seen a ghost. For those at the domain lord level, such strength is almost unimaginable to them. Is the gap between the junior and mid-level territory lords and the lower-level territory lords really as huge as the legend says? The confidence of countless masters has been severely damaged, but there are also many steadfast people who have found this information as a treasure, and each of them vowed to reach such an unpredictable level in the future. In short, no matter what, Jia Yan, who was only slightly famous in the Milky Way Central Star region, suddenly became famous because of this incident. But he himself didn't care so much. After leaving the Shanlu forces, his only focus was on Aditha's injury. This little guy almost died suddenly. Fortunately, she mastered some kind of defensive formation. Coupled with the palace's own defense and my influence on the giant palm, her life was saved. Jia Yan let out a long sigh of relief. Deep in the dilapidated palace, Between the ruined walls, Edisha was lying peacefully on the ground with her sleeping face. The giant mosquito looked at her like a small planet. The little guy's happy and angry face was very calm, and Jia Yan completely relaxed. 5 or 6 days passed, and Jia Yan used many first aid measures to bring her back from the door of death. I don't believe that guy didn't realize there was someone in the palace, but he still attacked Edisha. Although this move was to undermine my fighting method, it was too much. It's like they've been competing for so long, but they actually want to kill each other's family members. This seems a bit like bullying the weak and treacherous. No wonder Jia Yan used extremely powerful moves, causing the opponent to be injured as well. Maybe the other party doesn't view the problem this way, and may blame Jia Yan. But it doesn't matter, anyway. The feud between the two of them has been concluded like this. The front of the palace is also damaged. It just so happens that I have rarely been here in the past few decades. Taking advantage of the damage, I can find a manufacturer or force capable of repairing it and rebuild it. I just want them to improve something. Jia Yan looked at the palace and found it a pity. Anyway, there is no shortage of money now, so let's renovate it. Because of the appearance of Edisha, I had a reluctant draw with that guy. This was on the premise that the other guy didn't use all his strength. In fact, except for some special means, I can say that I went all out. It's obvious that there is a huge gap between me and him. Jia Yan began to reflect on his battle. There was no need to reflect on the reason for starting the war. He had brought it to that point, and the other party appeared quite suddenly. No matter how careful Jia Yan was, he could not avoid it. Therefore, he has gained some limelight, and secondly, he is afraid that many of his combat methods will be thoroughly studied by the entire galaxy. Regret is impossible. If he were to do it all over again, he would choose to fight this guy again. Let's see if there is any information about that guy in Xi's mind. Jia Yan first wants to resolve the issue of the other party's identity. Only after you know the basics can you position your own strength. If an unknown person could push himself to such an extent, then he would not dare to mess around in the central star field of the Milky Way anymore. After all, he could randomly encounter such a being, and he was still messing around. Maybe when he goes out, several of these guys will join forces to kill him. He didn't dare to bet that if there were too many similar strong men, they wouldn't stick together for warmth. After all, they are local masters. It is normal for an outsider like me to join forces to boycott him. There are ultra-miniature subspace machines in the palace, flying towards the outside world. They are subspace communication signal amplifiers customized by Jia Yan from technological forces based on his own subspace characteristics. They flew out of the subspace, and Jia Yan's brain quickly searched the internet. This kind of network can only last for a short period of time, but Jia Yan has already set up a smart brain. As long as there is a network, he will transfer a large amount of news and the intelligence network he is concerned about to the local area. In addition to not being able to contact others, he can instantly get the information was enough for him to watch for several days. Sure enough, my battle attracted widespread attention, and it was the front page headline. Jia Yan was not surprised at all. This place is only a few dozen light years away from the place where the battle took place. Such a short distance is enough news, so it is considered big news at a close distance. Soon, he read the news he wanted to know most. And after his eyes suddenly changed color, he became a little stunned. Recognized as the first person in the post-level domain masters of the Milky Way galaxy. Impossible. This was Jia Yan's first reaction. Even if he thought highly of the robot, he would never have thought that he was recognized as the number one in the so-called central star field of the Milky Way. It's not that he belittles himself, but no matter which angle he analyzes it from, his own level of Tianlu is still at the middle of the route, which is about 50 steps. Even with many unique explosive fighting skills, it is impossible to exceed the strength of 60 steps Tianlu. In other words, he is only a mid-level pilgrim master. But like this, can I barely tie with the masters of the first domain master in the galaxy? Really? This was Jia Yan's first reaction. He read the entire text carefully. I saw that the content was about facts, reasoning, and a lot of historical film and television materials. After reading it, Jia Yan felt excited. Passionate. It will be like, maybe. Are these reports correct? Under so many facts, the guy's identity surfaced. It's really what the report calls recognized as number one. No, this is just the number one recognized by the media and the world of the week. Regardless of the several evidences reported in the media and the confessions of other masters, the guy himself or other powerful existences in the lower ranks of domain lords, none of them have ever admitted this. Even if he doesn't admit it, judging from the many reactions, even if he doesn't stand on the throne of the most powerful person in the later realm masters, he is definitely not far behind. He may even be recognized as the number one in the galaxy's central star region. Jia Yan analyzed clearly and was a little shaken for a moment. Inexplicably, he got into a big fight with the lower level of the domain lord who was suspected to be the strongest in the galaxy's central star region. Although he would definitely lose if he really wanted to fight, but after thinking about it, no matter how he analyzed it, even if the opponent doubled his strength, he would still be able to escape. After all, subspace talent is not a joke. That is to say, I am stronger than I thought. He suppressed the ups and downs in his heart and took a deep look at the surrounding subspace. The palace was soaring deep in the extremely twisted subspace, and the fierce wind blowing sounded like ghosts crying and wolves howling. But he was very happy to hear it. It's as if there is an invisible road in front of you, opening the door for yourself. If I can reach this level with a top-notch territory lord, then it will be easy to start the work in the trade area or what I personally want to do in the galaxy's central star territory. His heart suddenly became as stable as a mountain. Only when one is not surprised by favor or disgrace can one become a master. Okay, this time I leave the other world, and with such gains, it is not in vain for me to give up many things in the other world, but the matter of concubine Kun must be investigated carefully. The more I provoke such a master, the more uneasy I feel. While Jia Yan was silently contemplating what to do next, he heard the sound of the little girl waking up from behind. Brother master, where am I? Have you forgotten? You were hit head-on by that guy's blow and almost died. Huh. I remember, it was so scary. Aditha thought she was dead. The little girl frowned, feeling slightly frightened. Even she was frightened, which shows how shocking the scene was at that time. After all, what he faced was not just a blow from the master of the lower level of the territory lord, but the palm was hundreds of kilometers long. From the perspective of a life form the size of an earthling, it was like a planet that covered the sky and the sun myself. Just that sense alone is very stressful. It depends on whether you dare to run around in the future. By the way, how did you come up with those moves to deal with him? Edisha finally woke up from her drowsiness. Although the injuries on her body were quite serious, for her who was now at the star level, she was worried that she would not be able to wake up from such an injury. As long as she woke up, it would take a long time to heal itself. At least it doesn't hinder discussing issues with Jia Yan. I came to escort the merchant ship. I didn't expect it. I heard they said you were here too, and then I ran into my master brother fighting with someone, so I helped. Isn't it amazing? Aditha shouted as if she wanted to take credit. Yell. Without waiting for Jia Yan to respond, she said to herself, are those dodge skills you mentioned? I came to the conclusion through calculation. It's not like you don't know about Edisha's brother, Master, who is very good at arithmetic. Jia Yan was a little moved. You can even see clearly the reaction of the lower level of the domain lord. Edisha shook her head desperately, I must not be able to see clearly, but Edisha has her own formation ability. This formation can make him feel a lot of early action, but I never thought I could understand the movements of a lower level domain lord. I've never tried it before. This is not just an ordinary domain lord's lower level. Jia Yan looked at the formation circle formed by Aditya as if offering a treasure in great surprise. He no longer understands the principles behind the formation. How far has this little guy traveled on the formation path? It seemed that he had cultivated a little monster unintentionally. At the stellar level, she can use the power of the array to assist, which will greatly help the domain lord in the battle at the lower level. If she continues to grow, what level will she reach in the future? Jia Yan felt a little relieved for a while. Very good, you don't have to tell me the principle. I haven't converted to the formation body yet, so even if you teach me, it will be half the result with half the effort. It's better to talk about it later. You only need to study and see if you can give me this formation. Just use it. After all, being able to sense the attacks of strong men is like doubling my combat power out of thin air. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3289. Thinking of this, Jia Yan's compound eyes lit up even more. There is indeed a doubled combat power bonus. When encountering certain opponents, the improvement in combat power reflected may be more than a doubled combat power bonus. For example, the guy from before, if he has the perception ability of Edissa, does it matter whether he has more experience than the other person? Having the ability to sense your attack methods in advance, are you afraid of your attacks? Jia Yan felt that his thoughts suddenly became smoother. And the eyes that looked at Edissa were so full of kindness that it made Edissa, a little girl who was familiar with Jia Yan, feel a little frightened. Brother, master, what are you doing? Why can't I look at you if I'm not doing anything? Edissa looked a little scared. Ha 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 ha, you don't have to be afraid. Anyway, just do your research. Oh, you don't have any machines available right now. Forget it, we will purchase some from the nearest large force and repair the palace, which will be just in time for you. Repurchase the damaged machines, no. Buy better ones than before, we have enough money now. Is that so? Great, Edissa wants the latest quantum computer. The latest 1000th generation product, the performance is 5% better than the previous one, and the price is only 5 times that of the previous generation. Do you think it's a good deal? Yeah, it's a good deal. You can just decide. You don't have to ask me. Jia Yan seemed to have met an otaku on Earth who likes games and computers. Because of Jia Yan's special characteristics, it is almost impossible to show his face in the Milky Way, so the person accompanying Edisha when she goes out is his clone that is waiting in the palace. The strength of this clone also has a star level. If it really wants to fight, it is possible to defeat even the domain lord level. Wow, this situation is so prosperous. Their leader is a domain master. How come he wasn't snatched away by others? Aditya was flying next to Jia Yan's fish clone, gesticulating there. They found a very large store owned by a local force, and found the answer from here. It turned out that the leader of this force had several senior domain lords as backers, and behind those senior domain lords there were also possible post-domain lords. Great Master, this also has a good security guarantee. Our leader is a rare benevolent king. We businessmen all trust him. 300 years ago, there was a rebellion by rebels. We all tried our best to help the leader, which shows that he is still very popular. Does such a power lord also exist in the central star field of the Milky Way? Haha, sir, you may not be from the galaxy central star region. Our galaxy central star region is not all about fighting and killing. Many monarchs are good people. Otherwise, how could we have a great civilization like ours? Because of the staff's talkativeness and answering questions, Jia Yan bought a lot of things from this store, and the other party even happily gave him a considerable discount. Of course, if you go outside and take a look, this discount price is not cheaper than others. Just think of buying a service. Isn't the central star field of the Milky Way all about fighting and killing? Jia Yan walked on the road to other forces, chewing on these words from time to time. He found that he seemed to have fallen into some kind of misunderstanding. Originally, he had always believed that the central star field of the Milky Way was a starry sky that existed only for the strong. But when he looked back and thought about it, he found that the reality might be different from what he thought. In this galactic central star field, to put it bluntly, it is precisely because of prosperity that there are strong people, not the other way around, because there are many weak people because of the strong people. Yes, in fact, most of the forces are still operating honestly. I used to regard all the forces as being controlled by force. This naturally led to misunderstandings and many misunderstandings. Misjudgment. When Jia Yan got this idea right, he understood many things that he couldn't understand before. The so-called many weak forces, and why many strong people do not rule the prosperous areas ruled by weak people, are easy to understand, because even if the strong ones govern, it is likely that they will not achieve the effects of the weak ones. For example, there is a certain domain lord with strong governance ability. His strength is average, but he is very good at governance and has created a force with a large revenue and expenditure surplus. At this time, a senior domain lord took a fancy to the other party's territory. The ordinary domain lords were naturally driven away. However, when the senior domain lord went to manage it himself, he discovered that the income from his management was not enough for the people to make a living, and it was even worse than letting that person do it. Territory lords came to govern, and he just lay back and waited for the protection fees paid by ordinary territory lords, so he invited the other party back. It seems that everywhere in this galaxy is similar. Professional things need to be done by professional people. I used to focus on the trade area. Isn't it a bit too much? Jia Yan wanted to understand and laughed at himself. It's not like he didn't know this earlier, but he didn't take it seriously. He would still handle things he could do and supervise himself. In the future, try to trust others and delegate the power that can be delegated. After all, the reason why I really control the power is not because I have the ability to govern, but just because I have strength. If I put the cart before the horse, it will slow down the progress of strength. Aren't you digging your own grave? Jia Yan suddenly understood. He feels that his strength has not improved as fast as expected in the past few decades, but it may not be because he wants to deal with too many mundane things. Edisha, how is your cultivation speed now? It's not bad. Then go back and I will leave some key matters to you. Can you do it? Okay, brother, master, why don't you want to take power anymore? Editha's big eyes were dazzling, and she actually penetrated Jia Yan's inner thoughts. Haha, I just don't want to waste any more time. You can deal with some of the mundane things when you go back. Of course, you must do it without affecting your cultivation progress. You are a future star in our force. Because of this kind of thing it's not worth it if it affects your future. Okay, Edisha has her own sense of proportion. Edisha's response made Jia Yan very pleased. All said and done, Edisha still made him worry-free. Many seemingly funny behaviors are just harmless and cute behaviors. When she really wants to carry the banner, she is completely indifferent. The orders placed by the two men at the repair manufacturers were so large that even the manufacturers couldn't believe it. In the end, Jia Yan paid half of the advance payment, which convinced the other party that Jia Yan and the others were not kidding, and the entire manufacturer mobilized collectively. Jia Yan didn't care if he raised the price by 10% or 20%, his only requirement was speed. The other party probably saw Jia Yan's extraordinary bearing, so he started working overtime without asking too many questions. The joints and fitting parts to repair the palace were manufactured one by one. Edisha, just go buy those computer processors you mentioned. I'll take a closer look here. Okay. Edisha was no longer the little girl who needed his care for everything. Jia Yan was relieved that she could handle her own affairs by herself, while the clone swam toward the depths of a sea of stars. The clone of this fish is certainly not enough for the real body, but the star-level strength revealed in it is something that ordinary experts dare not underestimate. But with such strength, he felt like he was being followed. Robbery? Isn't this force quite safe? Could it be that it's not robbery? Jia Yan hesitated, not knowing what to do. There had just been an incident in the central star field of the Milky Way, and he didn't want to be targeted again. My friend, please walk slowly. There was a shout from behind, and Jia Yan stopped and looked at the visitor. He didn't believe that among the more prosperous stars of this family, there were still people who dared to commit crimes blatantly. If they dare to do it, then they can't blame themselves if they kill the other party. Those who came were 3-star level beings paired with a group of half-star level beings. Hello, are you a new arrival here? They swarmed up and vaguely surrounded Jia Yan in the center. Is something wrong? Jia Yan was not nervous, but showed a little doubt. It's nothing serious, I'm just asking. Our starry sky has been a bit uneasy recently. I wonder if you can report your information. Are you the official of the local forces? I can't tell. We are of course official. It is no problem to take you back to the headquarters now, but if you are taken back by us, it will not be a small situation. If you are not afraid of trouble, you can go back with us. Every force has people who hold chicken feathers as arrows. At this time, they were like those who had obtained chicken feathers and wanted to do something unfavorable to Jia Yan. Jia Yan thought about it and nodded. Let me tell you my origins. I came to the Orion Arm region as a very ordinary star. Oh? Stellar level. They looked at Jia Yan's invisible fish-like clone a few more times, looked at each other, and asked casually, what is your purpose in coming to this starry sky? I'm here to buy materials for repairing my battleship. Repair? Judging from the materials you purchased, the battleship must have been seriously damaged. Otherwise, why did you purchase so many materials? I'm afraid it's enough to assemble a few battleships by yourself. I wonder if you can take us to your battleship to have a look. Jia Yan suddenly understood. These guys seem to be interested in their own battleships. That's right, he bought so many valuable things in this powerful hinterland. Although these money and goods are not even a drop in the bucket to Jia Yan, he is still a strong man. If a weak person buys these many things, some people will definitely doubt that his wealth is extremely rich. It depends on whether the other party wants to blackmail you, or whether you want to swallow all the property behind you. It just so happens that I'm still worried that I won't have a chance to talk to this leader of the force about my experience or something. The excuses these people bring to my door are no longer in vain. You can take a look if you want, but I don't know your specific identity and purpose. Why don't you take me to your master of power and let him make a decision? If he wants to check me, I will take you to check. You are only a star level. Do you still want to meet the master of our power? A follower took the trouble to interrupt Jia Yan's request, his expression slightly ferocious. The other people obviously didn't want to say anything else, so they looked at Jia Yan with half-smiling faces to see what Jia Yan would respond. Hey, sir, you seem to be very angry. It is not up to you whether I can see the master of your force. If I leave a message on the official communicator number of your master of force now, I am afraid it will be you. I won't be able to eat and I'll walk around in circles. Do you think I dare to do that? You, okay, what do you want to ask our master of power? If you can't answer Zai Wu Mao, we will arrest you for slandering law enforcement personnel. I want to ask him the reason for governing such a powerful force. Edissa was very happy and bought a lot of good things. Although she has almost become a separate living being, there are still certain parts that are tied to the brain. She may not die without the brain, but it will greatly affect her processing ability. So she had always wanted to upgrade her intelligent brain processor. It happened that the palace was damaged, so she started taking action. If she didn't take advantage of this opportunity, she would have to wait until the next upgrade. If I upgrade, I'm afraid my cultivation speed will be faster. I don't know when the next generation of products will be released. If I upgrade after the next generation comes out, the improvement may be another 34%. Definitely need to upgrade. She doesn't regard money as money at all, and pursues the latest generation to improve efficiency and speed by 34%. But you can't say that about her. After all, 34% is an improvement. Just like women like various types of lipsticks, clothes, etc. When you ask them, they all say that the style is good, the color is good, but from a man's perspective, it doesn't seem to matter. Different. The same goes for Addis's upgrade of her intelligence brain. This time it was because it was destroyed, and she might use another excuse next time. A group of people gathered around Edisha, who had just bought a bunch of smart brain peripherals. The little girl was like a small insect, her peripherals were much bigger than her, and she was controlled by her brainwave power to float in the air. What are you going to do? Little girl, we are law enforcement officers. We now suspect that you are serial economic criminals. Come with me. Editha's eyes were as wide as cowbells. How come I didn't know that we were economic criminals? Don't be slanderous. Needless to say, just let us go. These things behind her are all dirty. Take them with you. Be careful not to damage them. Gee, are they the latest model of processor peripherals? They cost more than me. The annual salary is high. Edisha was confused and found that the group of people started to snatch her belongings, and she immediately stopped. Stop it! With a sweep of her brainwave power, a star-level expert seemed to be knocked down by the wind, and fell directly to the ground, screaming oh. How dare you resist violently? Now you can't clean yourself up even if you escape into the Yellow River. Just arrest me. He fell down on his own and had nothing to do with me. How could Edisha not understand what the other party meant? This is a frame-up. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3290. She began to resist. Sizzle. Countless electric lights and flints were circulating in the air. What was invisible to the naked eye between the electric lights and flints was a huge number of small formation forces. At this time, Edisha, through her formation ability, already had yin-yang dao formation combat strength that far exceeded others. Catcha, boom. A giant creature several kilometers high rushed towards Edisha and hit the ground violently, with its head covered in bruises and howling incessantly. How dare you continue to violently resist the law? You must bear the consequences yourself. We are already qualified to kill you for this matter. What a little guy, he can even defeat a high-ranking star. Such a little one. A group of law enforcers felt that something was wrong with their facial features. Editha is such a little thing, she looks so weak, but she can even knock down a star level with one blow. It seems that Editha is full of vitality. She shouldn't be an old witch turned into a child. Why is this? Come on, Edisha is not afraid of you. Editha is like a cat with explosive fur. You must know that during the period when Jia Yan entered the other world, she was not just waiting for Jia Yan like others. From time to time, powerful beings would come to challenge us in the trade area, and some would even challenge us directly. From time to time, Edisha would receive letters from some of the challengers and then fight them. Win more and lose less. One of the most heart-shaking battles was her fight with the Domain Lord, and that battle ended in her victory. In comparison, the talent in front of me is nothing. Huh, little guy, it seems that if I don't give you some face, you won't obey me. Get out of my way. A domain lord level master emerged from the opponent's crowd. Editha looked serious. She felt that she was about to stage another great victory against the territory lord level. But it's hard to show mercy. In the previous battle, she had been merciless because she didn't know the situation. Now against the domain lord level, it is not certain whether they can win or not, so there is no room for mercy. Humph, Master Brother has been in the limelight once, this time it's my turn. Adisha clenched her fist firmly. With Jia Yan's protection, she believed that even if she exposed her true strength and let the world witness her ability to cross countless levels and be able to fight against a domain lord level, no one would be interested in her. Even if there is, it will be a situation that we will face in the future, and we can't just surrender now. Zizi. The power belonging to the formation is rising in the starry sky. Oh. Little one, do you still want to resist now? Interesting. The territory lord who emerged from the crowd couldn't laugh or cry, as if he was really facing a little kid. That's right. Looking at the problem from the perspective of a domain lord, isn't Edisha just a stubborn child? Although judging from the specific energy feelings, Edisha seems to have reached the stellar level, but the situation at this level is not stable, indicating that she has just arrived not too long ago. Such a talent is not bad, and she may be able to compete with one. Does the bit domain main level compete with it? That would be a fantasy. You have to know that from the star level up, there are still junior and middle levels of the galaxy before it is the turn of the domain lord level. The gap between the two sides is like a chasm. Kid, looking at your talent and strength, I'm afraid you have a good family background. I would like to advise you, it's better to just let it go, otherwise it will be difficult for your family to come forward. They are still trying to deceive Edisha by taking advantage of her age. Needless to say, it's all your fault for being aggressive, come on. Editha looked righteous and awe-inspiring. Humph, if you don't eat the toast, you'll be fined with wine. Give it to me. The domain lord level expert's expression became fierce, and with a shake of his foot, a majestic force pressed down on little Edisha's body. It's so strong. It's much stronger than the territory lord I dealt with back then, and he's also a junior territory lord. Is this a master of the same level in the galaxy's central star region? He's really powerful. Edisha gritted her teeth and felt the other person's power. Can't you move? I told you a long time ago. It was so good to be obedient just now. Why ask for trouble now? As if the domain lord did something simple, he ordered the other subordinates around him to come and capture the unable to move Editha. Just when they rushed to Edisha's side, Edisha's fixed little hand suddenly moved. Puff. The power of the carefully controlled array fell from the sky. He hit hard on the body of the stellar master who was close to him. The other party screamed and flew backwards. It's hard to describe the scene right now. Because the master who flew backwards was at least several kilometers in size, but Edisha was only about 1.5 meters tall. It was as if the figure of a mountain was blown away by a tiny dust. Anyone else would feel it. Incredible. How could you release the control? That power seems to be yin-yang sect. The domain lord vaguely remembered something, but not only did he not stop attacking because he recognized Edisha's power, his eyes turned blood red. Okay, the younger generation of my family was killed by your yin-yang sect, so let me arrest you and see if the yin-yang sect is willing to pay enough ransom, otherwise I will kill you to vent their anger. Such a genius, I think they will die too. It will be heartbreaking. No matter what method is used, a stellar junior who can break free from the control of a domain lord level existence must have an extremely important status. This master really values Edisha. He took matters into his own hands and stretched out his own foot. Before she even reached her feet, a breath that only belonged to Domain Lord level masters hit her like a mountain, and Edisha felt her breath suffocate. This kind of strength has long surpassed that of the territory lord she fought in the trade area. But Edisha is no longer the Wuxiaomon she used to be. The power of her formation was already freely retractable and suddenly flew out from under a small piece of clothing. You must know that she has always hidden countless array formations under her clothes, which are jokingly called walking formations by many formation disciples she trained and taught. To Edisha, that joking was a complete compliment. It can be seen how huge the power of the formation is hidden in her body. At this time, the first chi was released, and the sky was instantly filled with a sea of formations. This formation was not just a simple ordinary formation, but it was arranged in a strange way immediately after it appeared. The crowds of people who came to arrest him were surrounded by shouts and crowds. Interesting power, but a star level is a star level. Do you think you can escape by using some tricks? It's simply fantastic. The opponent's palm ignored the formation and still fell in front of Edisha. But he was careless. He clearly knew the yin and yang dao and the power of the formation, but he didn't make the correct preparations. Facing a being who uses the power of the formation, it cannot be measured by ordinary strength levels. Of course, from anyone's point of view, no one would think that a star-level person could cause much trouble in the palm of a domain lord level. By the way, the best app for reading and listening to books is Yeguo Reading. Install the latest version. Because this is something that even Jia Yan has never done before. Fighting across levels is not such a step beyond the law. Since the beginning of the entire galaxy, and since the establishment of the two-moment cultivation system, there has probably never been a stellar-level counterattack against a domain lord level. The two cannot be measured by the ordinary difference in strength level. They are already two existences at different levels of life. How can they be compared? Compare it with the Iron Head. But today, there is a little one who uses her unique fighting skills to do something that no one has ever done before. Buzz. The huge palm of the foot stopped only 2 millimeters away from Edisha. The domain lord level being's eyes sharply bulged, and there was some kind of uncontrollable surprise in his expression. He found that no matter how hard he increased his strength, he could not break through the distance of less than 2 millimeters. Unable to touch Edisha. You. What did you do? This. The followers around him also looked frightened. When something goes wrong, there must be a monster. This little guy is a little weird. Watch Edisha fight back against you. Edisha clenched her fists, and a large amount of formation power shot out from her fists. You must know that when she inherited the power of the formation from Jia Yan and Leda, she quickly understood that this power of the formation would be her place to stand in the world of strong men in the future, so in addition to normal practice, she has been painstakingly study the power of this formation. The formation ability at this time is more than 10 times stronger than it was decades ago. I'm afraid no one knows the extent of this little guy's true strength now. Oh! In the starry sky not far away, a figure had just rushed over. I was shocked. I was about to enter the battlefield. I stopped and deliberately hid in the darkness. He was so close that he should have been noticed, but no one on the battlefield noticed his whereabouts. This shows that he is probably also an extremely expert, and he is still more terrifying than the experts present. He watched the fight with interest from the sidelines. The power of the formation newly developed by Edisha has a very peculiar characteristic, that is, when taking action, because the overwhelming number of miniaturized formations collide with each other and have a certain rhythm, each large-scale movement will cause rhythmic music. Very beautiful. Yin yin yin. The domain lord level master's expression gradually became more and more solemn. Crooked ways. Move them. He quickly found a way to crack the power he used on Edisha, and the brainwave power all over his body vibrated violently. This vibration did not seem strong, but it had a miraculous effect on large formations with weak energy. The power vibrated, and the formation power of the entire world became slightly relaxed. He was also able to move. Against a mature domain lord, no matter how exquisite the power of Aditya's formation is, it is impossible to immobilize him directly. But the battle has just begun. After the forces of both sides are offset, the balance is restored. He slapped his palm on the place where Aditya was staying. The lovely Disha was like a little fairy riding the wind and waves, rising from the spot. The speed was not unpleasant, and she dodged the blow by a hair. It is impossible for a star level to have such a speed, but you are not using power beyond the star level. Is this the power of the yin-yang sex formation? But it is much more magical than the power of the formation I know. What on earth are you doing? Who is it from the yin-yang sect? He obviously knows a lot about yin-yang sect. But no matter how hard he tried to think, he still had no idea how sacred the little life in front of him was in the yin-yang sect. Even though she was young, the person who used the formation to this extent probably wouldn't be someone unknown within the yin-yang sect who borrowed it, but he didn't know about it. You must know that some time ago, he represented this force and made a deal with the yin-yang sect, so he specially saw the yin-yang sect's power formation method and combat skills. Aditya shook her head. Fingers flying. Every movement controls the movement of the formation. At the moment it looked like it was just a dense fog, but the entire starry sky was covered with tiny formations she used, and each one required her to operate. The calculations and control required were beyond the capabilities of ordinary life forms. Learned. Only a strange life form like Aditya, which still possesses some intelligence and computing power, can do it. It is impossible for others to copy it. Hey, guess what? She teased the other person. Don't be too happy too early. This kind of power is just a strange skill. It is not the right path of power at all. I have already felt it. Your power is like a rootless duckweed. I only need to bump into it a few more times. You will be finished. What the other party said made Aditya's heart sink. Because he was right. The enemies that Aditya is currently resisting include more than one domain lord level, and there are also 7 or 8 masters above the star level. A single domain lord level is almost her limit, and several others are also struggling at this time. With her strength, it is impossible to control them for much longer. What on earth do you want to do? Aditya couldn't help shouting loudly. What do you want to do? We just learned from the items you traded that there are many goods that were lost before by our forces. It seems that you have colluded with the star thieves, so we came here to arrest you specifically according to the order from above. You say, are we wronged? Of course it's unjust. We don't know anything about the goods you are talking about. Many of the items left in the palace were given to us by our superiors. Could it be that they robbed your things and left it in the palace? Aditya was quick to reply. She was absolutely right. Many of the items brought out for trade were originally left in the palace, but it would be nonsense to say that she had no idea of the value of those valuable items before. After all, she was a being transformed from her brain. From the beginning, she could tell that there were a large number of treasures in stock. They were the products of many forces in the galaxy. They might have been robbed by the owner of the original palace. But so what? No one would have thought that someone would dare to investigate and even want to arrest the items traded by a high-ranking domain master. Of course, this is because Jia Yan and the others did not reveal their identities. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3291. Funny words. I advise you not to struggle. Your master has probably fallen into our hands at this time. No matter how hard you struggle, it will be in vain. Aditya was stunned. Did you also send people to my master's brother's side? You are simply seek death yourself. Aditya held back the second half of her words. Because she still wanted to test the opponent's strength and use them as a whetstone. If she said it out loud, they might feel something was wrong and stop on their own. Edisha is not stupid. She will not give up such a good opportunity to test her strength without any reason. She believed that if the master's brother's side was going well, people would come to the area to investigate the situation, so her safety would definitely not be a problem. If you want to catch Edisha, try Edisha's ray gun. She yelled and raised her little hand. This pose of a 15-year-old girl had a unique charm. Boom. The girl who voiced her voice was so energetic that those who didn't know it would have thought that the master she was dealing with was the strongest in the world. But it wasn't too bad. I saw countless endless arrays of light floating in the starry sky, converging and forming, stabbing at the domain lord level master with a radiant light. Still playing? You are overestimating your abilities. Seeing that Edisha continued to resist, the domain lord's face darkened, and he decided to give the little girl some color to see, otherwise it would be ridiculous to capture an ant and take her back. First, give her some pain, which will also facilitate the subsequent forced confession. Although he looked down upon the little girl's own strength, he was still very interested in her ability to transcend levels and injure the enemy. But when the light of this strange fighting skill shone in front of his eyes, the domain lord level master suddenly felt a dangerous aura. Is it such a terrifying power? He was frightened and hurriedly dodged towards the starry sky beside him, but the junior galaxy master who was close by did not check for a moment and was hit in the head. The man wailed in agony, his eyes showed pain and disbelief, and gradually lost the color of life. Impossible. Dead? A galaxy novice. This group of experts, together with the junior domain lord, no longer looked at Edisha with the slightest hint of contempt. Come again, gun formation. It was impossible for Edisha to stop and admire the surprised looks in her enemy's eyes. She took advantage of their momentary loss of concentration to continuously concentrate her attacks and shoot them at the seemingly invincible group of experts in front of her. Be careful, this little thing is really capable of hurting us. It's more than just an injury. If that doesn't work, just kill him. I always feel like something is weird. Someone in the opponent's team already felt something was wrong. When something goes wrong, there must be a monster. It's not like I haven't heard of a kid with good talent. But to such an extent, they have never heard of it. It's beyond imagination. The Zinged novice who was shot through the head by Aditha's spear formation fighting style just now is still floating in the starry sky. There is nothing wrong with telling their opinions. Kill him quickly. I seriously doubt that this brat is a war weapon developed by the Yin and Yang Dao forces. Otherwise, how to explain her ability to fight across ranks can only be explained by her research materials. Yes, if we don't kill her, the Yin-Yang sect will probably kill her and silence her if she realizes that we already know her existence. That's a force with masters from the lower realms of the territory lords. The so-called people scare people to death. They themselves communicated in a panic, and finally came up with a conspiracy that everyone could accept. But there's nothing wrong with that. The existence of Edisha was kept strictly confidential by Jia Yan decades ago. It is not an exaggeration to say that she is the secret weapon of the Yin-Yang sect, the trade zone, the Orion arm and other places to a certain extent. Because Aditha's way of existence is too special, and her combat ability is indeed beyond the reach of ordinary practitioners, so to outsiders, she is a secret weapon to a certain extent, which really fits her positioning. The only difference is that the group of guys in front of them believe that Edisha is a template for some kind of war weapon, which may be copied on a large scale in the future. In fact, this is not the case. Edisha is unique. You are the weapons. Through the energy cracking tool hidden in the nearby palace, Edisha read the brainwave power exchanges of these strong men in near real time, and she was so angry that her little nose almost became crooked. These stinky, shameless people are talking to themselves. How Duan came to attack him, but he felt something was wrong and wanted to curse again. She swiped her fingers fiercely. The palace not far away from the subspace just now became a strong support for Edisha. The enemy's behavior, movement, judgment, and other behaviors are transmitted to Edisha in real time in the shallow space at all times. For an ordinary expert, even with such advanced facilities, it would be impossible for him to be perfectly integrated with the machine. Aditya could do it. Kill. The domain lord level man didn't say much. He watched Edisha coming before him. He calmly raised his feet and lowered one of his palms. Aditya seemed to have noticed the attack path of her palm a long time ago. She ran along the edge of the palm, and then rubbed the domain lord's arm with one hand along the way. It quickly rubbed all the way to the elbow, taking advantage of the domain lord's reaction. Before counter-attacking, use your strength to kick your legs and jump far away. You little brat, ah! Boom! The domain lord didn't have time to say any vicious words, he only felt a sharp pain in his arm. It turned out that when Edisha rubbed her arm, she had been dropping a large number of formation attack seals along the way. When she was far away from her, she directly used precise control to detonate these formation seals. Good guy. Has she developed the array combat skills to this extent? The people hiding in the starry sky couldn't help but let out bursts of cheers. Very wonderful. It was impossible for him to be strong enough to compete in a battle of this level, but the little guy's movements were very smooth, and his skills in using formations were eye-opening to him, so he couldn't help but sigh. He was Jia Yan, who had eliminated his opponent who was going to attack him, fearing that something would go wrong on Edisha's side. Unexpectedly, I rushed there in a hurry and got an unexpected reward. Aditya's fighting skills also have a lot of lessons for him. Jia Yan has long admitted that he is far weaker than Edisha in the research of formations. Now that decades have passed, Jia Yan really didn't expect that little Edisha would have reached this level. Stronger than he thought. Even he was like this, and the various masters in the battle were even more surprised. It hurts. My arm. The domain lord looked at his arm and was surprised to find that it had been severely injured. Although it was not incapable of fighting, it would definitely affect his subsequent performance of his strength. What the hell are you? He was very sure just now that he showed no mercy, but he was still climbed onto his arm by the little guy. His movements were not fast, but all his reactions seemed to be seen through by the opponent, and even the key points of his counter-attack were also blocked. It's so easy to handle. Even he was thinking in his mind whether this girl was a fighting machine trained by the Yin-Yang sect. Be careful, don't let her defeat you one by one. She is very evil and difficult to catch. Don't underestimate her. Not to mention underestimating the enemy, among the many masters present now, no one dared to underestimate the attack of the little one. The corpse of the first-level master of the galaxy is still floating in the starry sky. The consequences of underestimating the human girl are there. Who dares to make the same mistake again? But what they find hard to accept is that even if their own domain lord takes action, he is still injured by the little girl. If the geniuses in the central star field of the Milky Way have surpassed one level of fighting, then this little guy has surpassed too many levels, right? The energy she used should not be her real-time power. If it needs to be stored, I don't believe her power is endless. Just wait until her energy is exhausted, which is our chance to win. The domain lord level quickly saw the clues. He is worthy of being a domain lord level expert, and his vision is quite sophisticated. Edisha also paused, but she had no intention of stopping. After being seen through this, she still has a lot of tricks up her sleeve. She had long expected that such a day would come, and had prepared endless ammunition in the palace. That is the sealing power of the formation. Similar to Jia Yan usually likes to accumulate a large amount of explosives and formation power. When fighting, he uses the accumulated power as if he does not consume the energy at the time. It can be said to be some kind of plug-in during battle. Edisha has developed this to the extreme. She has accumulated even greater power, and she has also used a more scientific way to accumulate it, minimizing the loss of power consumption. The extra brain waves she produces during daily practice, she used her power to create a large number of formations and threw them in the palace. When the battle came, a terrifying formation power hundreds of times greater than her own body was waiting. This is the case at this time. Even if the stored power she is currently using is exhausted, Edisha only needs to drill into the shallow subspace. She does not even need to drill into it. There are already drones waiting in the palace, anytime and anywhere. You can leave the subdimensional space and put the power reserve in her hands. Poof. Another high-level stellar expert was hit in the abdomen by Edisha. He was just over 1 meter tall. In front of a several-kilometer large star, he was like an ant facing an elephant. But this ant-like existence caused the elephant to react violently with just one blow. The formation path surged up and exploded in all directions along the small fist, causing the opponent to roar. "Kill her, and don't think about arresting her or not." The Domain Lord covered his arm and finally showed a panicked expression. Just now, he personally stepped forward to arrest him, and even used the Domain Lord's unique combat skill, Domain Power. With such power, he should be able to deal with a weakling whose strength is far inferior. Kutisha seemed to ignore his field, slipped out of the field, and attacked another of his men. As a result, even he felt depressed. They might not be able to control such a little thing. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. Another mid-level star expert sprayed blood into the distant starry sky, and turned into a corpse in mid-air. His death was quite miserable. Editha's fighting ability is indeed strong, but her only shortcoming is that the power of the formations she uses often makes the enemy's flesh and blood become bloody, and because the strength itself is too low, the damage caused each time is not much. Often every death of an enemy is a death with scars and wounds, which can be described as extremely bloody. "Are you afraid?" Edisha turned her head, finally feeling a little lively. "For the masters in front of me, it was fun to chase her down, right? Now we were going to give them a taste of terror." The little guy was furious. During the confrontation just now, this group of people were saying bad things about her, like this: "You are going to die, surrender quickly, go home and drink milk from your mother," and so on. As a result, after the battle, she didn't feel much else, but she almost jumped out of anger, and her mentality exploded. No one knows that in such a prosperous place of cultivation in the central star field of the Milky Way, there is such a group of masters. They speak a lot of dirty words, and the person they fight against is a little girl who is inexperienced in the world. How can they not be fooled by them? Jumping in anger. It's better now. The little girl killed several people, making the other party know that this little girl is not easy to mess with. But there is no regret medicine in the world. If you offend Edisha and almost make her angry to death, you will have to bear the corresponding consequences. If you don't seek death, you won't die, tisk tisk. But am I going to witness the scene of the Stellar class's rebellion against the Domain Lord class? It really feels like witnessing history. If she does such a thing, I'm afraid she will be in this galaxy in an instant. She is famous all over the world in the Central Star Territory. How should I protect her then? In the starry sky in the distance, Jia Yan was amazed. Everything depends on how the little one deals with that domain level. Even if the fight ends like this, he is not very optimistic about the little guy being able to kill a Domain Lord. After all, the gap in strength cannot be made up by moves and unique skills. The other party is already wary and has seen a lot with Edisha's fighting methods. Maybe it will be Edisha's turn to become passive next. Jia Yan still stood by and watched. He wanted to see the result. But what disappointed him was that after sighing, he only heard movement from the stars behind him, and he couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Someone else arrived, and he couldn't see Edisha accomplishing an unprecedented feat. Gone. Just before a group of masters were ready to start a new round of battle with Edisha. A strange and vast force as vast as the sea immediately enveloped the battlefield. Everyone, including the junior domain master, suddenly seemed to be a high-level master. But to his disappointment, after sighing, he only heard movement from the stars behind him, and he couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Someone else arrived, and he couldn't see Edisha accomplishing an unprecedented feat. Gone. Just before a group of masters were ready to start a new round of battle with Edisha. A strange and vast force as vast as the sea immediately enveloped the battlefield. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3292. I saw a crack opening in that space. It is naturally difficult for clones to control the entire audience. Don't forget, the person practicing in the palace is Jia Yan's true body. To deal with the domain lord level, it is natural that the true body needs to appear. However, an ordinary domain lord level cannot even resist the aura of his true body. This, the late level domain master. Are you, Jia? Rock. Poof. The foot penetrated the head of this domain lord. How long do you want to play? Come back. Jia Yan took action decisively. And as soon as he took action, he used the power of Leiting to kill the domain lord level master. Ah, master brother, here we come. Editha shouted in surprise and fired electricity in the direction of the sound. It wasn't until the little girl happily entered the subspace that the rest of the people realized what she was doing. One blow. The domain lord level is dead. What kind of strength is this? The voice seems to be very similar to the buyer who appeared with this little girl. I don't believe that fish creature has such strength. It's not him. The information came in. This person is still walking in front of everyone, but he seems to be going to pick up the goods and leave. What should we do? Should we go over to reinforce him and arrest him? Catch a ghost. If we provoke this one again, no matter how many more of us are killed on the spot, have you forgotten its power? That's right, let's not get into trouble. I seriously doubt that this person's strength has reached the level of a territory lord, and he is not an ordinary territory lord. Otherwise, how can any post-territory lord be able to defeat a territory lord with just his chi? The first level territory lord was so suppressed that he couldn't move. Yin-Yang section. Could it be Jia Yan? Regardless of whether everyone was shocked or not. Edisha, who only said she had entered the subspace, was so excited after meeting Jia Yan. Chirping like an excited child. Brother Master, did you see the battle I just fought? I almost won even the territory lord level, and I was still the territory lord level of the Central Star Territory. I see, Edisha, I am very satisfied with your progress over the years. Yeah, Edisha is also very satisfied. I can finally help my master brother in the future. Jia Yan couldn't help but be startled. It turned out that this little guy was thinking about this matter, which surprised Jia Yan. You must know that although he has been motivating Edisha and the Jia family with similar words, he never thought that they could become the top fighting force around him in a short period of time. But Edisha took it seriously and used it as a target of her anger. When she was born, Jia Yan was not too optimistic about her talent. After all, she was a living body created using various suboptimal materials as the main material of the body. Her talent can be cultivated, so she is not a genius. Unexpectedly, she used various techniques and scientific training methods to really increase her strength like a rocket, and at the same time, she also had good combat effectiveness. Of course, her most unique source of combat power is the blessing of formations, which is a typical ability that only she can use. Haha, your ability is definitely a bit surprising even to me, but considering your past performance, there is nothing surprising. You deserve everything. If I can stabilize your realm and strength in the future, I will arrange certain key. I leave the work to you. After all, you are more worthy of my trust than others. Wow, Adisha needs more critical work. Aditha jumped up in surprise. With her charming and naive appearance, it is hard to believe that she is the girl who just crossed several levels and fought to a draw with the Territory Lord level. As for your strength, I will find a way to publicize your identity to the outside world. It must be a life form transformed from an intelligent brain, so no one will think you are too strange, let alone test you. Bar. Jia Yan knew that if others thought that Edisha was a normal life trait, they would have to operate on her for research. But if her true identity is announced, the number of people interested in her will be greatly reduced. At least he won't provoke any enemies that would give Jia Yan a headache. After all, a life form transformed by an intelligent brain using computing power sounds much less attractive. It's just that Edisha happened to encounter the power of the more peculiar technique yin-yang formation. Everything only needs to be looked at briefly. Looking at the relevant materials, we can see that the reason why Edisha can fight the Domain Lord is reasonable and reasonable. Presumably from now on, no one will regard Edisha's own level of strength as her true level. Everything can be explained by her unique life form. Edisha is naturally obedient and will not have any questions about Jia Yan's arrangement. Not long after, the clone, which had entered the subspace safely, arrived at the palace with a huge amount of supplies like a mountain. Behind him are a large number of strong men from outside forces, as well as spies who breed and eat. They only dared to hang from a distance, but no one dared to attack Jia Yan's clone brazenly. Until they witnessed the two clones entering the subspace with their own eyes, and then discovered that there was an extremely huge planet-like palace parked on the 5th or 6th floor of the subspace, everyone immediately exclaimed that it was indeed the case. Jia Yan was not far away in the starry sky, fighting against a top powerhouse in the lower ranks of Territory Lords, and became famous all over the world. It has only been so long, and hot news is still on the news lists everywhere. Everyone here naturally knows the information about Jia Yan and the palace he carries. They didn't expect that the legendary figure would appear so close to them. While each of them was surprised, they also felt happy to have witnessed the legend. There is plenty to talk about later. As for interception, not to mention that they showed up, they just killed a Territory Lord level master. Even if all the forces controlled by the senior Territory Lord level master outside were destroyed, who would dare to say no? It's almost like courting death. Even if there is a backer behind the senior domain master, from their point of view, whether the junior domain master can compete with Jia Yan is a matter of two opinions, so why should they have to wade through this muddy water? The junior Territory Lord who was killed by Jia Yan with one blow can only be said to be unlucky, who allowed him to touch the subordinates who were protecting him. Gone. Such a huge palace can also move deep in subspace. It is simply the most magical means of transportation in the world. This Jia Yan is not as cruel and unkind as the rumors say. Didn't the Cai Dai clan publicize in the media that this late Territory Lord from the Wild Land is a murderous and weak existence? Why are we and other forces attacking the weak today? He got into a big fight, but he only killed a Domain Lord level master, and it was the Domain Lord level who took the initiative. Hey, you don't know something? This upper level cultivator world definitely pays attention to the right of public opinion. According to me, the news is suspected of smearing Jia Yan. We don't dare to discredit today's events. We will publish the news truthfully. Otherwise, he or his subordinates will retaliate in the future. We, small media people, cannot resist it. When a group of people saw the palace entering the 10-dimensional space, they sped away like lightning and dispersed like birds and beasts. Among the entire trading force, only the first-level Territory Lord was killed, and the family behind him was in tears. The rest of the people didn't even have a trace of sadness at the death of a rabbit or a fox. Who told this guy to seek death by himself? To attack a powerful subordinate of a lower-level Domain Lord is to seek death. It didn't take long. A news statement spread from the Yin-Yang sect, and the trading forces controlled by the senior domain lords here issued related press releases. In terms of trading power, only one domain lord died. Knowing that Jia Yan had tried his best to show mercy, in the press release, all the responsibilities were placed on the dead domain lord. It is said that their group was jealous of money and decided to commit robbery on the spur of the moment, so Jia Yan counterattacked and killed them, which was completely a just act. As for the fact that they said it was official business and even produced an arrest warrant, they understood everything, but they didn't say any of this in the manuscript anyway. At the press conference from the Yin-Yang sect, there were professionals who made relevant explanations regarding Jia Yan's recent reputation and doubts, and expressed several times that Jia Yan's sect leader stationed in the Central Star territory was for the sake of peace. Later, the events that happened between Cai Dai's forces and the senior domain master's trading area were all caused by others forcing them to do so. Anyway, the Yin-Yang sect was brought to the forefront this time. Before this, even though many people already knew that this emerging force was closely related to Jia Yan, the general public still didn't know much about it. However, when this press release appeared, everyone immediately understood that the Yin-Yang sect was indeed an extension of Jia Yan's power in the central star field of the Milky Way, and it was also his face to the outside world. Immediately, the senior domain master level master who originally controlled the Yin-Yang sect's star field quickly issued a statement, saying that he admired the abilities of senior Jia Yan. He did not know that he actually controlled the Yin-Yang sect and now wanted to vacate the location of the Yin-Yang section. The land of peaceful star territory is like this. In addition, there are many forces that want to make friends with the Yin-Yang sect or power generation, or raise questions, and some envoys are on their way to the Yin-Yang sect. The status of the entire Yin-Yang sect seems to be rising like a rocket. However, their strength is indeed not comparable to the word's later level powerful territory lord. Of course, no one dares to question it. Many people believe that the Yin-Yang sect is nothing more than a small place left by Jia Yan in the central star field of the Milky Way. The truth is almost the same. In short, Jia Yan's time and efforts in managing the Yin-Yang sect are really far worse than the Orion arm, and even worse than the trade zone. Brother Master, this new communication device is so easy to use. I have already told you about it, and the Yin-Yang sect will soon be able to do as we asked. You did a great job, thank you. It's unfortunate, there's so much more Edisha can do. Editha has been very energetic lately. There was a lot of excitement going around in the palace to purchase the newly purchased equipment and machines, and commanding a large number of drones to operate various constructions. She has not forgotten her daily practice, and has to take time to communicate with Jia Yan about the power of her formations, and at the same time, she also absorbs some of the experiences in formations that Jia Yan said. Jia Yan couldn't help but sigh, with such hard work, if she doesn't become famous, who will become famous? In terms of time allocation and effective use, Jia Yan feels inferior. It is right to combine work and rest. You can take some time off when you go back this time. Do you want to cultivate in the other world, or do you want to cultivate in the created world? I want to go, create the world and have a good chat with the people I know. Well, then go create a world. Don't go to another world. You may still be involved in the war that is about to break out. War. Edisha was startled. She understood. Jia Yan's trip was to solve hidden dangers in the galaxy. The purpose was to face the war in the other world head-on. The war in the other world may have been in full swing for a long time. After the troops of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce conquered many areas in succession, the pressure suddenly increased, and there might be casualties and defeats in the war. Well, how about I go to the other world, where I can handle military calculations for my master brother? Edisha thinks she is quite capable in this regard, so she wants to continue working for Jia Yan. No, let's wait until you finish training. Rest for at least half a month. Maybe you will show up in half a month, which is when I need you most. Oh well. Adisha knew that no one else could refuse the rules set by Jia Yan. He had no choice but to nod in agreement. After saying this, Jia Yan entered a state of cultivation. Adisha went back to command the machine and continued to practice the palace, which had been mostly repaired. It won't take long before all the resources that cost endless money will be used on the palace. The entire palace will have a completely new look, and its functions and defense will also be improved by 1 or 2 levels. Although it is impossible to resist the attack of the Domain Lord's lower class head-on, if the Domain Lord's lower class, which was weakened several times last time, casually attacks, there is still a certain probability that it can be resisted. Jia Yan, on the other hand, was meditating, constantly recalling the Edisha formation skills he had seen on this trip in his mind, and then organized them into his own knowledge and formation abilities. But he found it difficult. It's interesting. Her technique is so precise that I think it's almost impossible to imitate. Jia Yan replayed Edisha's formation ability many times in his mind, but finally discovered that there was no way he could reenact Edisha's formation skills in person. And the difference is huge. Aditha can carve out countless formation circles that are like dust particles. Because they are about the same size as molecules and atoms, they can be combined at will to form something with infinite possibilities. But Jia Yan, no matter how hard he tried to compress it, he could only compress it into a formation circle of normal human size. The difference between these two cannot be calculated by reason. But he also has his own advantages. Not to mention that his formation power is countless levels stronger than Edisha's. Let's just say that Aditha's formation variables are strict and precise, and there are not many possibilities. The possibilities mentioned here are not combination possibilities, but some creativity is much worse than that of normal life forms. Jia Yan followed Edisha's skills and soon came up with many more advanced ones than Edisha. The solution only requires dispersive thinking, and when used, the stability may be poor. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3293. Very good, let's solve it like this. If it doesn't work in terms of precise control, we can start from other aspects. I think it won't be too different when it comes to performance. Jia Yan is used to Edisha's ability in formations and recognizes his own advantages, so he will not belittle himself. The two are destined to go in opposite directions of formation cultivation, and Jia Yan's direction is destined to be the plan chosen by the vast majority of yin-yang sex formation cultivation talents. Aditha's plan is only suitable for her. Jia Yan's is the right path. After superimposing some of the evolved array variables again, Jia Yan felt that his array strength had increased. As a result, his physical strength also increased. There is probably nothing that can enhance the strength of a lower-level territory lord in a short period of time. But the formation path in your place is such a thing. This is also the reason why Jia Yan has worked tirelessly to explore the power of formations over the years. Nothing could increase his power so quickly. There are still many aspects that can be improved. Unfortunately, I don't have that much time now. Jia Yan stopped his work and showed an expression of no time waits for me. This operation in the galaxy can only be said to be half successful. In a sense, it is not even half successful. The key person, Concubine Kun, was not even seen. However, the goal of intimidating the forces targeting him and pushing the trade zone into the central star field was achieved. Kinkai is the prestige of Onmyedo opening in the central star field. These few points are roughly equal to those that have not been successful. In other words, Jia Yan can only rely on these to comfort himself, because with his current ability, this is the limit. The central star field of the Milky Way is just as he thought before coming here, it is a place with very deep water. Not to mention anything else, the appearance of one of the strongest men was enough for him to be defeated. "Brother Master, why don't we just go back like this? Why don't we go to the Yin-Yang sect to have a look? The current Yin-Yang sect will definitely make you look at it differently. Time is tight, so I won't go this time. I'll go back in the future. Besides, I don't have much time to continue driving back to the palace with you. You can drive back to the palace while I go back first." Jia Yan suddenly stood up. Being in the palace was not only about learning new formation power from Edisha, but also recuperating from the power deficit after the battle. Now that he has cultivated himself, he will naturally take the first step. Edisha was startled, and then nodded in understanding. Because she knew that today was different from the past, and the palace's 10-dimensional speed could no longer meet Jia Yan's need to travel quickly. The matters in the trade zone have reached the point where Jia Yan will explode countless conflicts if he does not handle them personally, so he must race against time. Watching the giant mosquito get up in the 10th dimension and fly to the 11th dimension, Editha's little body seemed to be deflated, and she was a little unhappy. It's only Edissa alone again. She's been alone a lot lately. I don't know when I'll be able to stand beside my master brother and help him solve his problems. Now Edisha is actually not weak anymore, she can even fight against 1 or 2 at the Domain Lord level, but it depends on who she is compared with. If she is compared with Jia Yan's current main opponent, her level is still too far behind. She cannot and will not be included in the ranks of real helpers by Jia Yan, as she is unable to fight even the lower ranks of the Territory Lord. "You have to work harder, Edisha, you can do it." Edisha cheered herself up. Her clear and transparent eyes flashed with endless mathematical formulas. She was checking something, and similar calculations had been carried out for many days. As for the final product, no one knew. Hu. Deep in the subspace, Jia Yan is charging forward alone. After another few dozen years, he found that even if he continued to travel in the 11th shallow subspace, there wouldn't be too much of a problem. This is probably the limit of existing subspace talents. By the way, Jia Yan seriously doubts whether there are still people in the Milky Way who can travel in the 10-dimensional space for a long time. Even Jia Yan knew that the subspace talent of the post-territory lord class that the avatars fought against last time, Jia Yan knew that the opponent could not fly in the 10-dimensional subspace for as long as he could. Let alone the 11th degree, Jia Yan thought it might be difficult for him to even enter for a long time. Without the long acceleration process, I think I might be the fastest person in the entire galaxy. Jia Yan defined his speed. He dare not talk about short-term acceleration for the time being, but only in terms of long-term speed. He believes that no top master or any technological navigation warship can compare with him. With the blessing of this speed, he returned quickly towards the trade area without stopping. "Ha ha ha, your trading area is a famous place, is it so useless? I heard that in your trading area, there are not only senior domain lords, but also several domain lords and post-level masters. I am a young man who is not talented. I have never had a confrontation with a domain lord and post-level master in my life. I wonder if you can satisfy me today. This small wish? Or are the seniors of the lower realm lords also afraid of my strength and don't dare to show up?" On this day, the trade area that had always been prosperous took on the appearance of facing a powerful enemy. All ports in the entire trade zone have temporarily entered a state of strict management. There were local fighting gestures that could not be opened in several places. There was another war zone, and the strength levels of both sides of the battle showed a spiral upgrade. Soon the senior domain masters from both sides appeared, and the fight was in full swing. However, these back-and-forth battles fell into a unilateral ravage of the trade area after a senior domain lord from the other side appeared. The cheers from the trade area stopped abruptly. Countless people were inside their safe homes, staring blankly at the scenes of fighting outside, all in disbelief. You must know that those who appeared were the senior domain masters of the older generation in the trade area. They also joined Jia Yan's trade area team very early and were entrusted with important tasks by Jia Yan. They are not only strong but also dedicated to their duties. Deputy District Chief. He has a similar status to the goddess of the divine realm. He is the third in command after Jia Yan and the goddess. He has a very high status in the hearts of the people. And many people regard his strength as the third existence after Jia Yan and others. Even he was defeated by the enemy. The Deputy District Chief is an extremely fat monster with squinted eyes when he smiles, resembling Maitreya Buddha, so he has a good impression of the people in the trade zone. At this time, his chest was heaving violently and his expression was very ugly. Dad, it seems that the Deputy District Chief is going to lose. Should we try those things? Jia Rong and Jia 11 were protected by countless experts and watched the entire process from the outside not far from the battle circle. They saw the defeat of the Deputy District Chief just now and were anxious in their hearts. Especially Jia 11, who pressed the beads hanging around her neck several times, her eyes flashing with impulse from time to time. Young people are like this, they often get hot-headed. Jia Rong was different. He raised his palms to stop his son's behavior. Don't worry, if we use the backhand left by your grandfather, it may not change the situation, and may even anger the other party. Do you really think that the thing he left behind can be used without the control of a matching person? Can it pose a threat to a top senior domain master? This. Jia 11 shook her head unwillingly and remained silent. He knew he couldn't do it. The means Jia Yan left to the Jia family may be very powerful, and may even injure a senior domain lord. But when it comes to killing the senior domain lord, it is quite difficult, and the strength gap between their father and son and Jia Yan is as big as heaven, and they cannot even make good use of this power, which will also cause a huge waste. Rather than using it now, it's better to wait until the situation changes. Besides, even if we have to take action, it won't be our turn. Jia Rong looked at several locations in the crowd. Jia 11 followed his father's gaze, and he had no expectations at all. Even the Deputy District Chief, who is known as the top 3 powerhouse in the trade zone, has been defeated. Is there any existence in this trade zone that can withstand the opponent's offensive? But when he turned his attention to the figures his father was watching, his expression suddenly brightened and he showed joy. Don't make any noise, no talking. I know, I won't tell. Jia 11 nodded quickly to her father, who reminded her. But the joy on his face could not be concealed at all. Because the several figures he saw were all Jia Yan's clones. Although the Earthling's clone Black God is not here, his quantitative presence makes up for the qualitative gap. Jia 11 sensed the identities of those people through the Jia family's own blood senses. Others did not have this ability, so they were naturally frightened by the dangerous scene. However, the Jia family and his son could not speak out at this time, so they had to worry about it for a while longer. Several Jia Yan clones approaching the battlefield looked at the confrontation scene on the screen with expressionless expressions. The clones here have strange shapes, but one thing is the same, their strength is invisible, and no one can detect it. What, does the senior domain master need me to personally take action? One clone looks like it has just been cultivated and is weaker than the other clones, so it cannot use communication in the mind and needs brainwave power to communicate with others. At this time, the war clouds are thick. We cannot take action immediately. If possible, it is best for the trade zone to solve this trouble by itself. Otherwise, if we are exposed, we will lose one of the trade zone's trump cards. Another clone's figure emitted brainwave power and responded in a way that no one could feel. The clone nodded and said no more words. On the battlefield. Puff. The Deputy District Chief finally officially announced his defeat and spat out a mouthful of blood. That's it? A senior domain owner from the trade area quickly shouted stop. he is the so-called referee and notary of this competition. The opponent looked menacing, but because they didn't know the details of the trade zone, their attack method was very strange, and they were carried out in the name of communication along the way. It seems that even if they are arrogant, they will still be afraid of Jia Yan's name. He, in my opinion, your trade area is really exaggerated. You have already said that you might as well send a senior who is a junior territory lord to fight with me. You actually look down on me, or what? Others call it hidden dragon and crouching tiger. Queen territory lord, there are a lot of trade zones in the world, but they are just silver spears and wax heads. In fact, they don't have much strength at all. The senior territory lord was a young being, and it was said that his name was famous in an area 3,000 light years away. Because of his talent and strength, he was just like Jia Yan back then. He soared to the sky in a short period of time. Now, at just over 1,000 years old, he has already reached the level of a genius-level senior domain lord, and even ranked among several local senior domain lords. There is no opponent at all. Now he is fighting against the masters of the trade area, and he really lives up to his reputation as a genius. Therefore, he was even more arrogant, and actually wanted to fight against the lower-level territory lords in the trade area by name. You are too arrogant to want to fight against several seniors in the lower ranks of territory lords, aren't you? The deputy district chief, who was severely injured by his opponent, looked at the young man coldly from the sidelines. The young master, who was stared at by his eyes, couldn't help laughing. Ha ha ha, Your Excellency, what are you talking about? Could it be that you have lost and you still don't want me to say anything? And we are strong men who only look at our strength and not our words. If you have that ability, why not let me defeat you? If the existence of those junior domain masters really exists, let them take action. If they die, I will not have any complaints. This is what you said yourself. Just when this person said this, a soft voice came from the sea of stars behind the universe. With the appearance of the voice, the owner of the voice seemed to suddenly appear from the darkness of the background universe, as if teleporting here, slowly rushing to the battlefield. This. You are. Senior. It's actually you. The young master's expression became extremely solemn, while everyone in the trade area had complicated expressions with mixed emotions. Ban it? Ha ha ha, Your Excellency, what are you talking about? Could it be that you have lost and you still don't want me to say anything? And we are strong men who only look at our strength and not our words. If you have that ability, why not let me defeat you? If the existence of those junior domain masters really exists, let them take action. If they die, I will not have any complaints. This is what you said yourself. Just when this person said this, a soft voice came from the sea of stars behind the universe. With the appearance of the voice, the owner of the voice seemed to suddenly appear from the darkness of the background universe, as if teleporting here, slowly rushing to the battlefield. This. You are. Senior. It's actually you. The young master's expression became extremely solemn, while everyone in the trade area had complicated expressions with mixed emotions. It's you. The young master's expression became extremely solemn, while everyone in the trade area had complicated expressions with mixed emotions. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3294. The arrival of Haitian brought endless shock to the people in the trading area. Even Jia Yan's direct children feel this way. It's not like they haven't seen super strong people before. How could they not have seen ancient super masters when they stay next to a being like Jia Yan all day long? But they were still shocked at this moment. Because Jia Yan made it clear about his identity and the lifespan he faced. Even Jia Yan was not optimistic about the person who could survive. Now he actually violated Jia Yan's prophecy and appeared in front of them alive again. What happened to the Jia family? Cannot be shocked. Old guy. Are you looking for death? The expression of the young master who besieged the trade area changed several times. After faintly hearing the conversation among the people in the trade area, he finally made up his mind. Recommended, Yeguo reading and chasing books is really useful. Download it here, you can try it soon. I want to have a fight with this old man who has the power to overwhelm everyone. Because everyone said that he was a person who was about to expire. Although he didn't know why he still had this momentum, he must have used a secret method to give him momentum on the surface. Haitian is no longer as crazy as he used to be, but his eyes are still and unwavering, making everything difficult to see through, as if the former starry sky thief has come out again. Whether you are seeking death or not, needless to say, young man, why don't you come and try it yourself? You are trying to be mysterious, let me reveal your disguise. The young master smiled ferociously and stepped forward. There is still a size difference between him and Hai Tian. In this scene, I have to admire the boldness of this beast. Another person would be intimidated even by seeing Hai Tian's huge body. But his courage does not represent his fighting ability. Boom! Just when he arrived in front of Hai Tian and was about to attack with a pathologically arrogant expression, Hai Tian smiled contemptuously. He patted it gently with his palm, and the figure of the senior domain master was like a cannonball, shooting out into the depths of the starry sky. The process was like an extremely long movie, but the battle ended abruptly just as it started. That's it? Similar emotions could not help but arise in the hearts of everyone present. Young master. One or two of the higher UPS in the enemy army ran over in a hurry. But some of those who got close first, when they saw what their young master looked like now, they gasped in disbelief and backed away. The young master, who was extremely arrogant just now, was struck by Yun Dan Feng Qing, and his whole body became broken and his muscles were broken, and he was no longer human-like. Died. You still have breath. Take it back for treatment quickly. The entire enemy group was in chaos. While transporting their last breath of young master, some people wanted to retreat into the distant starry sky in a panic. Lost. The young master couldn't even catch the old man's move, and there was no way they could survive if they went up there. Friends from the trade area, it all depends on you whether you want to kill these bandits or let them go. Hai Tian looked at the people in the trade area indifferently. Some kind of enlightenment arises in everyone's heart. It seems that the old man did not kill the invading senior domain lord with one blow. It is definitely not because he has no ability, but because he does not want to provoke more enemies in the trade area without the request of everyone in the trade area. Senior, since we have offended them, there is no reason to let them leave unharmed. Just when no one knew how to reply, and even when everyone was unfamiliar with him, a voice came out. It's actually a nice female voice. Everyone fled and saw that it was Jia Yan's daughter Jia Makiao who emerged from the crowd. Little girl, it turns out you are still here. Since it is your request, I will comply. When Na Hai Tian saw Jia Makiao, his kindness became even more obvious. His figure flashed and he approached the retreating large group of enemy troops at high speed, crashing into countless enemy warships in the process. Ordinary soldiers and horses were attacked by such masters. Not to mention resisting, they could not even resist the slightest resistance. They were directly knocked to pieces. Endless corpses were like drizzle in the starry sky, and the sky and earth were filled with blood. Auntie, aren't you practicing? Why did you come out? Jia 11 and Jia Makiao were probably the most familiar to everyone present, and even Jia Makiao's nominal brother Jia Rong didn't have a better relationship than him. After all, the two are said to be aunts and nephews, but in fact they are close in age. It can be said that Jia Makiao grew up under Jia 11's watch. But Jia Makiao didn't respect him much. Xiao 11, if I don't come out, can you talk to Senior Hai Tian? Jia 11 scratched her head in embarrassment. For their trading area, this senior Haitian, let alone an acquaintance. Most of the experts have only heard of his name and have not even met him in person. The Geo family may be better, but they don't talk much. As for Geo Mosquito, not only did he get a meeting from that senior, but he also received a gift of training resources from him, so the relationship was naturally very good. Xiao Rong, Xiao Xiao 11, you will meet this Hai Tian with your father later. They had just started talking, and a new person joined their group, with a face and appearance that was extremely unfamiliar to them. But the way this person spoke made them immediately understand who was coming. Dad. Grandpa. The clone that transformed into a spherical figure nodded calmly and said, "Yes, it's me. When the war ends, I will definitely have a conversation with Hai Tian." It was only because of his intervention that the trade zone was spared. It's difficult, this kindness is higher than the sky, not to mention that I am also very interested in his way of living. Although the clone Jia Yan's strength may not be the same as his original form, his vision is the same. He could clearly see that today's Haitian was indeed as he predicted, and there was no breakthrough. But he's not dead either. Rather, it is in some strange state. No life, no death. Fantastic. Ah! The whole war came to an end as the so-called young master let out a miserable howl of unwillingness. Hai Tian, who is an ordinary soldier and a small shrimp, as a master of the lower level of the territory lord, naturally disdains him and does not need him to take action. So after killing most of the enemy masters, he looked at the gate of the trade area here. In particular, he turned his attention to the clone who was surrounded by the Geo family at the gate. He smiled a little. He knew that Jia Yan must have a clone here, otherwise after learning that Jia Yan's real body had left, he might not go to such trouble to sell favors to the Geo family. To put it bluntly, this person's action was all for Jia Yan's sake. Or maybe it's because of Jia Yan's strength and skill. I've met Senior Haitian. When Hai Tian approached, Jia Yan stepped forward to greet him with a smile. I knew, how could you not have any arrangements? This must be the result of the old man and me superfluous. If I didn't take action, you must have a way to deal with such enemies, right? No, if seniors didn't take action, I would have to give up a lot of means to deal with them. I really want to thank seniors. The two were chatting and laughing, which reminded people in the trade area who saw the scene not far away from the rumors about Jia Yan's clone. Sure enough, Lord Jia Yan really has many avatars stationed in this trading area. They didn't know what kind of emotions they were feeling. They were happy about the remnants of the disaster at this time, but they also had a sense of crisis that they were being manipulated by powerful people at the top. You know, a top master puts great pressure on cultivators. Many people seem to respect Jia Yan, the absolute number one master in the trading area, and treat him as an equal as much as possible. But deep down, they were afraid to the core of their beings, such as Jia Yan and other lower-ranking domain lords who were pressing down on them. The nightmares they often had were about Jia Yan killing them. Now that they have truly seen the gap between top masters and ordinary masters, they have brought the images in their dreams into reality. A senior domain lord is as defenseless as a baby in front of masters of lower-level domain lords. For many masters who fantasize about senior domain lords being inferior to lower-level domain lords, it is like their dreams have been shattered, and they are not even able to resist. The heart of respect does not dare to arise. Although Jia Yan did not take action this time, the effect was no different from that of action. The strength of a lower-level territory lord is enough to prove Jia Yan's strength. Under the leadership of Jia Yan, everyone entered the core of the trading area. The current trade area is simply a port, which is no longer enough to describe it. You know, with the explosive growth of population, the entire region has changed from what it used to be. During the period when Jia Yan left, some large forces moved in, plus many scattered people who moved in. It can be said that the population is booming. The construction inside is also changing with each passing day, with countless buildings and novelty gadgets springing up like mushrooms after a rain. I didn't get to see the scenery of your place properly last time. Now that I'm thinking about it again, I really underestimated this place. It has great prospects for the future. Senior, thank you very much. Compared with the many scenery that our predecessors have seen, this place is just a barren land. The two chatted and laughed as they moved forward. There were not only the Geo family behind them, but also several senior domain owners and elders from the trade area. They only dared to accompany and listen from a distance, and did not even have the courage or authority to speak. Especially when they heard about the current situation of the trade area, it seemed that it was nothing to the lower-level domain masters. They felt both uncomfortable and helpless in their hearts. Perhaps for the high-ranking masters of the lower-level domain lords, the current situation of the trade area is indeed undesirable. After all, there is still a huge gap between them and the rumored prosperous place in the galaxy. When talking to businessmen who travel throughout the galaxy, I can already feel the disdain that many people have for them. If it weren't for a powerful person from the lower level of the territory lord to settle here, many merchants would not be willing to come. Senior, I wonder how you survived the last moment. When Jia Yan brought Hai Tian to the hall where he usually received distinguished guests, his avatar's questioning voice without the censor's voice rang out in the dark. The people who followed behind him couldn't help but prick up their ears. You know, even the weakest strong person is extremely concerned about his lifespan. This senior actually broke through the limit of the limit. In other words, he broke fate. The huge temptation in this, if the other party was not a top master, maybe everyone present would have rushed over and questioned him carefully. Survived. Haha, Your Excellency Jia Yan, the word survive is so apt. Hai Tian had an expression of you understand very well, but after his eyes fell into reminiscing, he couldn't help but feel a little sad. Actually, I don't know how I survived. Can you believe it? When Jia Yan heard this, his round avatar revealed an extremely anthropomorphic frown. Everyone's reaction was similar. It can't be unclear. Unless the master doesn't want to tell his secret. Of course, if the other party is unwilling to tell, then no one present would dare, let alone have the ability to press. Even Jia Yan's clone couldn't do it. It would be nice not to break through the trade area, but it would be too arrogant to want to break the casserole and get to the bottom of it. Hey, Senior, to tell you the truth, Junior really doesn't believe it. But Jia Yan is different. No matter what, he is still a powerful junior domain lord. And he believed that even if the clone present could not restrain the opponent, since this senior came to the rescue, it meant that he had no intention of dealing with the trade zone. Now that you have already taken action, if you are inexplicably betrayed by some words, you are asking for trouble. I believe that given the other party's level and psychological ability, he would not be furious because of this disrespect. Don't believe it? Forget it, since you don't believe it, I'll tell you the real situation. Haitian nodded simply. But he glanced at the others present. Senior, I have some finishing work to do after the war, so I'll take my leave now. Master Jia Yan, let's go. Even if everyone didn't want to leave, they still couldn't help but leave the hall. It's not that I don't want to tell this group of people, but if I tell them, I can't tell whether it's a blessing or a disaster. After all, if someone follows my example and ends up causing a tragedy, I won't be able to bear it. Jia Yan's clone did not comment, but just nodded and said, Senior, since there are no outsiders, why don't you just say it? Haha, your boy's clone has a slightly different personality from his real body, but he is so irresistible. Hai Tian was stunned for a moment, and then the whole room burst into laughter. The clone felt helpless. Isn't it normal for the clone's personality to be different from the real one? Why smile like this? Fortunately, Haitian didn't make too much ridicule about it. Instead, he changed the topic back to the topic. In fact, lifespan is almost impossible to change. He picked up the teacup and a large amount of tea flew up with a movement of his fingers. Just like this tea, it will be gone after you drink it. If you want to breed it again, you must either break through the limit of your strength and make the teacup bigger, and the extra part will automatically be filled with water. That way your life will be extended, but my state, you also know. Jia Yan's clone nodded calmly and said, yes, your strength has not broken through. No matter how weak the clone is, the vision is still there. He could see that Haitian's strength had not broken through yet. Therefore, he was extremely concerned about Haitian's secret of breaking the life limit. Although Jia Yan himself cannot use it, there are such mysteries in the world. For him, it is something that he wants to get to the bottom of. God knows whether he will use it one day in the future.